They threw Maya Vance out 4 days after her husband's funeral. Rain hammered the marble steps of the Harrison estate while her 5-year-old twin daughters clung to her coat, too scared to cry loudly. Richard Harrison took the car keys from her palm. Margaret Harrison unclasped the family necklace from Maya's throat and said, "That was never yours. You were only borrowing our name." Maya had $42 left, 2 black trash bags of children's clothes, and a retired military dog named Major standing between her daughters and the people who had just made them homeless. She did not beg. She loaded Zoe, Ava, and Major into an old pickup with one working headlight and drove into the storm. But that night, in a motel room that smelled like mildew and bleach, Major began clawing at Maya's old Army medic bag. What Maya pulled from the hidden pocket was worth $200 million, and it would change everything. Before the storm made her homeless, before the red-sealed envelope, before the Harrisons learned that a woman they had treated like charity carried a name older and stronger than theirs, Maya Vance had spent 7 months learning how slowly a man could disappear while still breathing. Marcus Harrison did not die all at once. He died in pieces. First, it was the weight. Then the appetite. Then the strength in his hands. Then the way he stopped walking down the stairs and started standing at the top of them, looking at the first step like it had become a river he was not sure he could cross. Maya noticed every change before the doctors gave it language. That was what combat medics did. They read the body before the body confessed. They listened for the sound beneath the sound. They watched the way a person breathed when he was trying to hide pain from the people who loved him. Marcus tried to hide it badly. He smiled too much. He said he was fine too quickly. He made jokes when his fingers shook against a coffee mug. He told Maya the new medication just made him tired. But Maya had knelt beside men in desert dust, with blood under her palms, and helicopters screaming overhead. She knew the difference between tired and fading. She knew it the first morning Marcus sat on the edge of their bed for 19 minutes trying to button his shirt. He thought she was still asleep. She was not. She watched him through half-closed eyes. Watched his right hand miss the buttonhole once, twice, then stop completely. He lowered his head. Not crying, not praying. Just lowering it like the weight of being strong had finally bent his neck. Maya got up without making it feel like rescue. She crossed the room, sat beside him, and buttoned the shirt from the bottom up. Marcus stared at the wall. "I can still do it," he said. "I know," Maya said. She did not say more. She had learned years ago that dignity is sometimes the silence you give someone while helping them. Maya Vance Harrison was 34 years old. She was 5'7", lean from years of carrying more than her body was built to carry, with dark brown skinned shoulders that stayed squared even when she was exhausted, and eyes that made people lower their voices before they knew why. She had served 8 years as an Army combat medic. 2 deployments. 4 commendations. 1 scar above her left ribs from shrapnel she never talked about. 1 scar through her sleep that no doctor can see. In uniform, she had been Specialist Vance, then Sergeant Vance. She could start an IV in the back of a moving Humvee. She could pack a wound with one hand while calling coordinates with the other. She could tell by the color around a man's mouth whether he had minutes or seconds. Men twice her size had screamed for their mothers with Maya's hands pressed against their chests, and she had never judged them for it. Pain made children of everybody eventually. That was one of the first things the Army taught her. The second was that fear was not the enemy. Panic was. So Maya did not panic. Not when the first hospital bill arrived. Not when the second opinion cost $1,200 before anyone touched Marcus. Not when insurance denied a scan because the wording on the referral was wrong. Not when Richard Harrison told her with the smooth sadness of a man who had never had to choose between medicine and groceries that the family had already done more than enough. Maya only folded the denial letter, placed it in a blue folder marked Marcus Medical, and made another phone call. She became an army of one at the kitchen table. Bills on the left, prescription slips on the right, insurance letters in the middle, a spiral notebook open beside them, mortgage, copay, gas, groceries, specialist, childcare, medication. The numbers did not care that Marcus was kind. They did not care that Zoe and Ava still believed their father would get better if they drew enough pictures for him. They did not care that Maya had already sold her good winter coat, her backup wedding band, the small diamond earrings Marcus had given her after Ava took her first steps, and the second car they had once used for doctor visits and school pickups. Numbers had no mercy. They only stood there. Maya stared them down anyway. Every month, she moved money from one emergency to another. $78 for the pain medication, or $78 toward the overdue electric bill, $46 for gas to get Marcus to the clinic, or $46 for groceries that would make it to Friday, $22 for the children's cough syrup when both girls caught a cold from preschool, or $22 toward the parking fees at the hospital that charged families for the privilege of being afraid beside someone they loved. There was never enough. There was only what had to be paid first. That was poverty math. Not poor because she did not work. Not poor because she did not plan. Poor because illness has a way of eating through savings, pride, sleep, marriage, and furniture before it finally admits it is still hungry. Maya worked whenever Marcus could be left alone. Night shifts at a private security company because they liked hiring veterans. Weekend shifts driving medical transport because she knew how to lift patients without hurting them. Cash jobs changing dressings for elderly neighbors who could not afford home care and did not want strangers touching them. She did not tell Richard or Margaret. She did not tell anyone at the Harrison estate. They already looked at her like she had married upward and should spend the rest of her life whispering thank you. She refused to give them another reason to count her bruises. The Harrison estate sat behind black iron gates on 12 acres outside Philadelphia. The house had 6 bedrooms, 2 staircases, a library nobody read in, a dining room used mostly for charity dinners, and windows tall enough to make weather look decorative. Maya had never mistaken it for home. A home was where people lowered their guard. The Harrison estate made everyone stand straighter. Even the flowers looked arranged by thread. The first time Maya walked through those doors as Marcus's wife, Margaret Harrison kissed the air beside her cheek and said, "You must feel overwhelmed." Maya had smiled politely. "No, ma'am," she said. "I've been overwhelmed before." Margaret did not ask what that meant. People like Margaret did not ask questions that might produce answers they could not frame. Richard Harrison was worse because he was quieter. He had a way of looking at Maya as if she were a number that refused to balance. He never called her Maya unless guests were present. In private, he said, "Your wife" to Marcus and the girl's mother to staff. Once, when Marcus was still strong enough to argue, he heard it. "She has a name," Marcus said from the breakfast table. Richard looked over the top of his financial paper. "I am aware." "Then use it." The room went still. Margaret's spoon stopped against her teacup. Maya stood at the counter cutting strawberries for Zoe and Ava, her back to them, the knife moving steady through red fruit. Richard folded the paper once. "Maya," he said, each letter clean and cold. Marcus reached for her hand under the table later and squeezed it. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "You didn't say it," Maya answered. "No," he said. "But I brought you into the house where it was said." That was Marcus. He saw the wound even when he had not made it. That was why she had loved him. Not for the Harrison name, not for the money, not for the estate with marble steps and rooms too large to feel warm. She loved him because the first time they met, he was sitting on a folding chair at a Veterans Health fundraiser, arguing with a hospital administrator about why discharged medics should not have to wait 4 months for trauma counseling. Marcus had not been a soldier. He had been a corporate attorney then. Expensive suit, clean hands, family name on 3 buildings. But his anger that day had been real. Not polished, not charitable, real. Maya was volunteering at the triage table, checking blood pressure for veterans who trusted her because she knew how not to look shocked by what they said. Marcus came over after the argument and asked if the administrator was always that useless. Maya looked him up and down. "You always pick fights in $1,000 shoes?" He looked at his shoes, then back at her. "Only when the floor deserves it." She almost smiled. Almost. He noticed. He spent 6 months earning the rest of it. Marcus learned quickly that Maya did not like grand gestures. Flowers made her suspicious. Expensive restaurants made her uncomfortable. Compliments embarrassed her unless they were specific and useful. So he brought practical things. A tire gauge after she mentioned her truck pulled to the left. A pack of thick wool socks after a night shift left her feet numb. A notebook with waterproof pages because she still wrote everything by hand. And one afternoon, after she told him her grandmother used to say a soldier does not beg for shelter, she builds it. Marcus showed up with a small brass key on a chain. "What is this?" Maya asked. "My apartment," he said. "Not because you need it. Because I want you to know every door I have opens for you." She stared at the key for a long time. Then she took it. That was as close to a proposal as Marcus got the first time. The second time involved a ring. The third involved him asking Zoe and Ava for permission before they were even born, kneeling in front of Maya's stomach like a fool and making her laugh so hard she cried. 5 years later, the twins were the only part of the Harrison bloodline that Richard and Margaret could not fully reject without exposing themselves. Zoe came first by 3 minutes. Serious from the beginning, fists closed, eyes open, as if she had arrived with questions. Ava followed with a cry so sharp the nurse laughed and said, "That one has opinions." Marcus wept when he held them. Not elegantly, not quietly. He cried with his whole face while Maya lay exhausted in the hospital bed and pretended not to see because she knew he would be embarrassed later. Major sat outside the hospital entrance with a service handler because dogs were not allowed inside the maternity wing. The moment Maya came home with the babies, Major walked to the carriers, sniffed each tiny foot once, then lay down across the nursery doorway. He appointed himself guardian before anyone asked. Major had come into Maya's life 2 years before Marcus. A retired military working dog with a graying muzzle, one torn ear, and a limp that appeared when it rained. Belgian Malinois and Rottweiler mix, according to the adoption papers, though Maya always said he was mostly stubborn and classified information. He had served with the medical evacuation unit overseas. He had been trained to detect stress, explosives residue, unfamiliar movement, and the tiny changes in human bodies that came before collapse. When he retired, he was supposed to go to a quiet handler with land. Instead, he met Maya at a veteran rehabilitation event, ignored 3 other people, walked straight to her, and sat on her left boot. The trainer laughed. "Looks like he picked you." Maya looked down at the dog. Major looked back like the paperwork was already finished. She took him home that week. He learned her nightmares before Marcus did. On bad nights, when memory dragged Maya back to a field hospital tent and the sound of a young soldier asking if his legs were still there, Major would press his full weight against her side until she could feel the present again. Floor, wall, breath, dog, home. After the twins were born, he transferred that same duty to them. If Zoe coughed, Major stood. If Ava cried, Major paced. If a stranger approached the stroller too quickly, Major placed his body between them and waited for Maya's command. He never barked without reason. That was what made the night at the motel matter later. Major did not waste warning. By the time Marcus got sick, Zoe and Ava were old enough to understand that the house had changed, but too young to understand why. They knew Daddy slept more. They knew Mommy whispered on the phone in the hallway. They knew Grandma Margaret smelled like expensive perfume and never sat on the floor. They knew Grandpa Richard's study was a room where laughter went to die. They learned to be quiet in ways children should not have to learn. Zoe stopped asking for bedtime stories if she saw Maya rubbing her temples. Ava began saving half her crackers and napkins and tucking them into Maya's coat pocket. For later, she would say. Maya found them at night. Broken saltines, soft animal crackers, half a granola bar pressed flat by tiny hands. She would stand in the laundry room with those crumbs in her palm and feel something inside her twist. A child should not have to ration love. A child should not have to feed her mother in secret. One Thursday in February, Maya caught Zoe sitting on the nursery rug with a roll of silver duct tape. Her left sneaker was in her lap. The sole had separated at the toe. Zoe was trying to tape it closed. Not well. The tape stuck to her fingers, the rug, the side of her dress. Maya knelt in front of her. "Why didn't you tell me, baby?" Zoe did not look up. "Because Daddy has medicine this week." That sentence did not break Maya loudly. It broke her in a place that made no sound. She took the shoe, peeled the tape gently from Zoe's fingers, and kissed each sticky fingertip. Then she drove to a discount store after the girls fell asleep, spent $14.69 on a pair of shoes with purple stars, and put them beside Zoe's bed before dawn. The next morning, Zoe hugged them to her chest like they were treasure. Margaret saw the shoes at breakfast. "Those are very bright," she said. Zoe pulled her feet under the chair. Maya looked at Margaret. "She's 5. Margaret lifted her teacup. "I was simply making an observation." "So was I." Marcus heard about it later and smiled weakly from the recliner beside the window. "You scared my mother again." "No," Maya said, adjusting his blanket. "I reminded her I was awake." He reached for her wrist. His hand was thinner than it used to be. "Maya." She looked at him. There were days when he had the face of the man she married, and days when illness had borrowed it. That afternoon was both. "If anything happens to me," he said. "Don't." "If anything happens to me," he repeated softer. "You take the girls and you go somewhere my father cannot reach you." Maya pulled her wrist from his hand. "Marcus, I said don't. There's something he never told you." She froze. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the oxygen machine. "What?" Marcus closed his eyes as if the sentence had taken too much from him. "Papers," he whispered. "What papers?" He tried to answer. No sound came. Maya leaned closer. "Marcus." His breathing changed. Pain tightened his mouth. The moment was gone. The nurse arrived 20 minutes later. The doctor adjusted his medication. By evening, Marcus could not remember saying it. Maya did. She wrote it in the spiral notebook under February 12. "Marcus said Richard never told me something. Papers." Then she underlined the word once, twice, 3 times. That notebook went into her old army medic bag because that was where Maya kept anything too important to trust to a drawer in the Harrison estate. The bag was olive green, faded at the seams, with her last name stenciled across the side in black letters. Vance. Not Harrison. Vance. It had carried bandages, trauma shears, tourniquets, morphine injectors, field notes, letters she never sent, and once, during a sandstorm, the hand of a 19-year-old private who did not want to die alone. Now it carried insurance forms, unpaid bills, the twins' vaccination cards, Marcus's medication schedule, Zoe's taped drawing of Major wearing a Crown Ava's hospital bracelet from birth, and the spiral notebook where Maya wrote the things nobody else seemed willing to remember. That bag had been with her before Marcus, before the estate, before the Harrisons learned her name and decided it sounded temporary. Maya trusted the bag more than she trusted most people. Every night, after the girls were asleep and Marcus had drifted into the shallow, uneasy rest that sickness allowed him, Maya sat at the kitchen table and checked it. Documents, medication list, emergency cash, when there was any, phone charger, snacks for the girls, Major's old service tag, the brass key Marcus had given her years ago. A soldier does not beg for shelter, she builds it. Her grandmother, Evelyn Vance, had said that to her the summer Maya turned 13 after a landlord changed the locks on their apartment while her mother was at work. They had stood on a sidewalk in Baltimore with 3 suitcases, a laundry basket, and nowhere to go. Maya remembered the heat rising off the pavement. She remembered her mother crying behind sunglasses. She remembered Evelyn standing straight in a yellow church dress, one hand on Maya's shoulder, the other holding a purse with $19 inside. Maya had asked, "Where are we going?" Evelyn had looked at the locked door, then at the girl beside her. "A soldier does not beg for shelter," she said. "She builds it." They slept in Evelyn's friend's basement for 6 weeks. Then Evelyn found a room, then a job, then another. Maya never forgot the sentence. It followed her into the army. It followed her into motherhood. It followed her into the Harrison estate, where shelter had marble floors and still somehow felt unsafe. Marcus died on a Monday morning before sunrise. The sky outside the bedroom window was pale gray. Zoe and Ava were asleep in the next room with Major between their beds. Maya was sitting beside Marcus, 2 fingers on his wrist, because she did not know how not to monitor a pulse. He opened his eyes once. "Maya," he whispered. "I'm here. The girls." They're safe. He tried to nod. His eyes moved to the corner of the room where the army medic bag sat against the wall. For 1 second, Maya thought he was going to say the word again. Papers. Instead, he looked back at her. You were the best thing I ever chose. Maya pressed her forehead to his hand. Don't leave me with your parents. A corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Not enough time for one. Then the pulse under her fingers thinned, paused, returned once, then did not return. Maya did not scream. She counted because counting was what her body knew how to do when the world became impossible. 1, 2, 3. Check airway. 4, 5, 6. No movement. 7, 8, 9. No pulse. 10. She placed his hand on the blanket, straightened the sheet over his chest, and sat very still. Major began howling from the hallway before anyone told him. The sound woke the girls. Ava started crying first. Zoe stood in the doorway without making a sound, clutching Tuesday the stuffed rabbit in one hand and Major's collar in the other. Maya turned. For one terrible second, she did not know how to be a mother and a widow at the same time. Then Ava said, "Mommy," and Maya stood up. Because that was what Maya Vance did. She stood up. She crossed the room, knelt in the hallway, and opened both arms. The twins ran into them. Major pressed his body against all three. Behind them, the Harrison estate remained quiet. Too quiet, as if the house had been waiting for Marcus to stop breathing so it could finally decide what to do with the woman he left behind. 4 days later, Richard and Margaret made that decision. But before the marble steps, before the rain, before the keys were taken from Maya's palm, there had been this. A woman who had served her country. A wife who had fought illness with folders, phone calls, night shifts, and hands steady enough to hold a dying man without letting him see fear. A mother whose children had learned to hide hunger and broken shoes because they loved her too much. A dog who had watched every door, and an old army medic bag sitting in the corner, carrying one word Maya had written and underlined 3 times. Papers. That word would matter. Not yet, but soon, because some truths do not arrive loudly. Some truths wait in hidden pockets. Some truths wait in hidden pockets. Some truths wait until the storm. The Harrison family did not think of itself as rich. Rich was what new money called itself when it still needed other people to notice. The Harrisons thought of themselves as established. That was Richard's word. Established meant the money had been there long enough to stop sounding like money. It meant portraits in hallways, scholarship funds with the family name engraved on brass plaques, hospital wings, museum boards, political donations, quiet tables in private clubs where no one asked for a credit card because everyone already knew who would be billed. Established meant you did not explain your power. You let people feel it when you entered the room. Richard Harrison had inherited that belief from his father, and his father had inherited it from a man who had made his first fortune buying rail warehouses after the war and selling them back to the city at 3 times the price. By the time Richard took control, Harrison Capital no longer smelled like rail grease, coal smoke, or anything that had ever touched a worker's hands. It smelled like mahogany conference rooms, polished shoes, and contracts written in language ordinary people needed lawyers to survive. Richard was 64 years old, tall, silver-haired, and thin in the way wealthy men become thin when their meals are selected by doctors and private chefs. He did not raise his voice often. He did not need to. He had spent his whole life surrounded by people trained to respond before he repeated himself. His assistants anticipated. His attorneys softened. His accountants moved numbers before numbers became questions. His wife corrected rooms before he entered them. His son had once been the only person in that house who could make Richard look like a father instead of an institution. Then Marcus married Maya. Richard never said he hated her at first. Hate was too honest a word for a man who preferred clean surfaces. He said he was concerned. He said Marcus was moving too quickly. He said Maya came from a very different background. He said military life did something to people. He said trauma could look like strength if you did not know what you were looking at. He said all of this while standing beside the window of his study with a glass of water in his hand, looking out across the south lawn as if Maya were not a woman his son loved, but whether approaching the property line. Marcus listened for 12 minutes. Then he said, "You can say black if that is what you mean." Richard turned from the window. "I mean incompatible." "No," Marcus said. "You mean black. You mean working class. You mean she served in places where men like you send other people's children and then forget them when they come home." Richard's face did not change, but something in the room lowered its temperature. "That is a dramatic interpretation." "That is an accurate one." Margaret Harrison had been sitting on the sofa with her legs crossed at the ankles, pearls at her throat, one hand resting on a magazine she had not been reading. She looked up then. "Marcus, darling, no one is saying Maya is not admirable." Maya was not in the room. That was how Margaret preferred it. She liked conversations about people better than conversations with them. "She is admirable," Margaret continued. "Of course she is. Her service, her resilience, the way she carries herself, all very impressive." Marcus stared at her. "But marriage is not an award for bravery," Margaret said gently. "It is an alignment of families." That was the first sentence Marcus repeated to Maya later, not because it surprised him, because it did not. They were sitting in his apartment then, before the estate, before the twins, before illness turned staircases into enemies. Maya listened without interrupting. When he finished, she nodded once. "My grandmother used to say, people show you the door they expect you to use." Marcus frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means your mother just showed me the servant entrance." Marcus took her hand. "I won't let them treat you that way." Maya looked at him for a long moment. "You can stand beside me," she said, "but you cannot lend me a spine." I brought my own. He loved her more after that. The Harrisons did not. They attended the wedding because absence would have looked worse than disapproval. Margaret wore champagne silk and smiled in every photograph with exactly the amount of warmth required to avoid evidence. Richard gave a toast that lasted 4 minutes and mentioned Marcus's childhood, Marcus's education, Marcus's future, the Harrison legacy, the importance of family stewardship, and not once, not one single time, Maya. At the reception, Maya's Aunt Lenora leaned toward her and whispered, "Baby, that man just erased you with a microphone." Maya took a sip of water. "He can try." Lenora smiled. "That's Evelyn's blood talking." Maya's mother was gone by then, her grandmother too, but the Vance women were still in the room in small ways, in the way Maya stood, in the way she thanked the servers by name, in the way she did not lower her eyes when Margaret introduced her to donors as Marcus's wife and moved on before Maya could speak. Marcus noticed everything. That was both the gift and the grief of him. On the drive away from the reception, he sat in the passenger seat of Maya's old pickup because she had refused the vintage Bentley Richard offered for photographs. He loosened his tie and said, "I should have said something during the toast." Maya kept both hands on the wheel. "You said yes at the altar." "That wasn't enough." "No," she said, "but it was the part that mattered to me." For a while, love held. Not perfectly, not easily, but it held. Marcus kept his apartment downtown instead of moving immediately into the estate. He worked at Harrison Capital because leaving would have started a war he was not ready to fight. But he came home every night to Maya, to take out on paper plates, to Major sleeping across the doorway, to a life where silence meant peace instead of strategy. Then Zoe and Ava came. For 3 years, Marcus was happier than anyone in the Harrison family knew what to do with. He learned how to warm bottles at 2 in the morning. He learned which cry meant gas and which cry meant loneliness. He learned that Zoe liked her socks pulled high and Ava pulled hers off the second no one was looking. He learned to braid badly and then better. He learned that Major could be bribed with turkey but not moved from the nursery door. He learned that money could buy almost anything except the look on Maya's face when both girls fell asleep on his chest and he whispered, "I think they like me." "They tolerate you," Maya said. That's how Vance women start. Marcus laughed so hard he woke Ava. Those were the good years. The Harrisons visited often enough to maintain claims, not enough to offer help. Margaret arrived with monogrammed dresses the girls hated because the collars scratched their necks. Richard brought educational savings documents and spoke to the twins as if they were tiny board members under review. Zoe hid behind Maya's leg. Ava once handed him a plastic teacup and told him his voice was too pointy. Marcus laughed for 3 days. Richard did not. When Marcus first began getting sick, the Harrisons returned with force. Illness gave them what love had denied them: access, control, reasonable concern. Richard suggested Marcus recover at the estate where there was more room. Margaret said the girls needed stability. Their family doctor knew the best specialists. The staff could help. The grounds were peaceful. Maya said no the first time. Marcus said no the second. Then came the night he collapsed in the bathroom and Maya found him on the tile, conscious but unable to stand, one hand gripping the sink, his skin gray under the light. The ambulance took 17 minutes. Maya counted all of them. At the hospital, Richard arrived with 2 attorneys and a private physician. By morning, the transfer was arranged, not demanded. Arranged. That was how the Harrisons conquered. They did not kick down doors. They opened better ones until refusing them made you look ungrateful. Maya moved into the estate with Marcus and the girls because the hospital bed fit in the downstairs suite, because the specialist made house calls there, because Marcus needed equipment their apartment could not hold, and because love sometimes walks into rooms pride would have avoided. She told herself it was temporary. Major did not believe that. The first night back at the estate, he stood in the hallway outside Marcus's suite and growled at Richard's closed study door. "Major," Maya said softly. The dog stopped growling. He did not move. She understood him. The house had too many locked doors. Richard's control over Marcus tightened quietly. Medical authorizations, insurance correspondence, specialist appointments, financial documents Marcus was too tired to read. A power of attorney Margaret called routine. A family trust review Richard said was necessary because illness created complications. Maya objected. Richard looked at her across the dining table. "You are overwhelmed." "No," Maya said. "I am paying attention." Margaret placed her hand over Maya's. It was cold. "Dear, no one is questioning your devotion." Maya looked down at the hand until Margaret removed it. "You question everything else." Marcus was in pain that week. Real pain. The kind that made speech expensive. Richard chose that week to bring papers into the room. Maya came in with fresh water and saw the leather folder open on Marcus's lap. A pen was in his hand. Richard stood beside the bed. Margaret sat near the window. "What is this?" Maya asked. Richard did not look startled. "Administrative cleanup." Marcus blinked slowly. His face was damp with sweat. Maya crossed the room and took the pen from his hand. Richard's eyes sharpened. "That is unnecessary. So are secrets." Margaret stood. "Maya, please do not make a scene when Marcus is already suffering." Maya turned to her. "A scene is what people call the moment a quiet woman starts asking questions." Marcus closed his eyes. "Maya," he whispered. Not warning, not rebuke, apology. She knew the difference. The papers went back into Richard's folder that day, unsigned. But after that, documents stopped appearing when Maya was in the room. Appointments shifted. Conversations ended when she entered. Staff began saying, "Mr. Master," Harrison requested, without specifying which Mr. Harrison they meant. Once, Maya walked into the library and found Richard speaking to Marcus in a low voice. She caught only the last sentence. "Your wife does not need to know every burden." Marcus saw her in the doorway. "My wife decides what she can carry," he said, but his voice was weak, too weak. Richard looked at Maya. For the first time, he did not bother hiding the dislike. "She has already carried you far enough from her family." Maya stepped into the room. "No, Richard, I carried him back into it." That was the last open fight before Marcus died. After that, the house became polite. Polite meals, polite updates, polite cruelty folded into offers of help. Margaret told the girls not to run near their father because it upset him, though Marcus smiled whenever he heard their feet. Richard moved meetings into the estate and filled the house with men in suits who spoke softly around illness and loudly around money. Maya became both nurse and obstacle. The staff came to her for medication times, but to Richard for permission. Visitors asked Margaret how the family was holding up, and asked Maya whether she needed more towels. At night, when Marcus slept, Maya sat with the army medic bag by her feet and wrote down everything. Who came, what was said, which papers were mentioned, which accounts were closed, which bills disappeared from the mail before she saw them. She did not know yet what she was building. Evidence sometimes looks like paranoia until the truth catches up. Richard underestimated that. He thought Maya's silence meant exhaustion. Margaret thought Maya's restraint meant submission. Neither of them understood the difference between a woman who had given up and a woman who was conserving energy. Major understood. He watched Richard the way old soldiers watch tree lines. Still, patient, ready. The last week of Marcus's life, Richard stopped pretending. He told Maya the estate belonged to the Harrison family trust. He told her Marcus's illness had complicated certain financial realities. He told her she and the girls would be provided for appropriately, depending on what appropriately meant after probate. He said the word probate as if it were a locked gate, and he already had the key. Maya stood in the hallway outside Marcus's room with a basket of clean laundry against her hip. "My daughters are Harrison's," she said. Richard's mouth tightened. "They are children. They are his children. They are his children. They are minors. They are mine." For a moment, Richard looked almost amused. "Maya, sentiment does not determine legal standing." Maya shifted the laundry basket to her other hip. "No. But judges do." That was the first time Richard understood she might become inconvenient. Not powerful. He was not imaginative enough for that. Just inconvenient. 4 days after Marcus died. Inconvenient. 4 days after Marcus died. Inconvenience became something he intended to remove. The funeral gave the Harrisons their audience. The estate gave them their stage. Grief gave them cover. Margaret wore black and received condolences like a queen receiving tribute. Richard shook hands beside his son's casket and thanked people for honoring the Harrison family. Maya stood between Zoe and Ava with Major at her heel and felt Marcus being turned into a family asset. Before the ground had even closed over him, no one asked what she needed. No one asked where the girls would sleep once mourners left and the flowers died. No one asked because Richard had already decided. The house would be cleaned, the trust would be protected, the name would be restored. And Maya Vance, the combat medic with the old pickup, the black wife he had never approved of, the mother of his granddaughters, would be handled. He did not know about Arthur Elijah Vance. He did not know about the Red Seal. He did not know that one of the folders his staff had tossed into Maya's army medic bag contained a letter sent to the estate months earlier. A letter bearing a name Richard had dismissed because it was not Harrison. He did not know because he had spent years believing the only power in the room was his. That was the mistake rich men made when their money got old. They confused silence with absence. They confused restraint with weakness. They confused Maya Vance with someone who had nowhere else to stand. And 4 nights after Marcus was buried, Richard Harrison called her downstairs to prove it. Richard called her downstairs at 10:43 p.m. Not came for her, not asked for her, called. A housekeeper named Elise appeared at the bedroom door with her hands folded in front of her apron and eyes fixed somewhere near the carpet. "Mrs. Harrison," she said softly. Maya looked up from the small suitcase open on the bed. The girls had fallen asleep 30 minutes earlier, still wearing the black dresses Margaret had chosen for the funeral because she said photographs mattered, even in grief. Zoe was curled on her side with her knees tucked up, one hand gripping the sleeve of Maya's sweater. Ava slept beside her with her thumb near her mouth and Marcus's old gray t-shirt bunched under her cheek. Major lay on the floor between the bed and the door. He lifted his head before Elise spoke. His ears moved forward. "What is it?" Maya asked. "Mr. Wright. Harrison would like you downstairs." Maya did not move immediately. She looked at the digital clock on the nightstand. 10:43. Rain tapped against the windows, soft at first, then harder, as if the night had been waiting for permission to break open. At this hour? Elise swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." Maya closed the suitcase slowly. Inside were the girls' pajamas, 3 pairs of socks, Ava's stuffed rabbit, Zoe's inhaler, Marcus's folded t-shirt, the spiral notebook, and the old army medic bag at the foot of the bed. She had started packing after dinner without knowing exactly why. A soldier did not always need a reason to prepare. Sometimes the body heard danger before the mind had evidence. Did he say what it was about? Elise's eyes flicked to the sleeping children, then back down. "No, ma'am." That was answer enough. Maya stood. Major stood with her. "Stay," she told him quietly. Major did not sit. He stood in the doorway and stared at Elise until the housekeeper took 1 step back. Maya softened her voice. "Major, guard." The word changed him. He turned, walked to the side of the bed, and lay down beside the girls, his body between them and the door. Maya touched Zoe's hair once, then Ava's cheek. Then she picked up the brass key Marcus had given her years ago and slipped it into her pocket. Not because it opened anything now, because it had once meant every door he owned opened for her. She wanted to remember that before she walked downstairs into a house preparing to close all of them. The hallway outside Marcus's suite was dim. The estate did not go dark at night. It glowed. Small lamps along the walls, gold light over antique tables, portraits watching from frames, marble floors reflecting the storm in broken streaks from the tall windows. Maya passed the closed door of Marcus's room. The hospital bed had already been removed that afternoon. Richard had arranged it before the funeral flowers were taken from the chapel. The oxygen machine was gone. The IV pole was gone. The table where Maya kept medication logs was gone. All that remained was the faint rectangle on the wall where the machine had blocked sunlight and smell of antiseptic that had settled into the curtains. Maya stopped outside the room for half a second. She did not open the door. If she opened it, she might see the emptiness. If she saw the emptiness, she might not keep walking. So she kept walking. Downstairs, the house was too clean. The kind of clean that comes after a crowd leaves and staff erase every trace of human feeling. No coffee cups, no folded tissues, no condolence cards on side tables, no half-burned candles, no evidence that 200 people had stood in that house 5 hours earlier pretending to mourn a man most of them had known through quarterly reports and Christmas cards. The grand hall stretched beneath the chandelier. Richard stood near the foot of the staircase in a dark suit, tie removed, white shirt collar open at the throat. He looked tired, but not broken. There was a difference. Margaret sat on the carved bench beside the front doors, still in her black dress, pearls still at her neck, hair still perfect. Her grief had not moved a single pin. Beside Richard stood a man Maya recognized from Harrison Capital. Daniel Pierce, family attorney. Thin mouth, silver glasses, a leather folder held against his chest like a shield. Behind them, 2 security guards stood near the side entrance. Maya took all of it in before her foot touched the last step. Attorney, security. Margaret seated, Richard standing. Front doors clear, no staff in sight. This was not a conversation. This was an operation. "You wanted to see me," Maya said. Richard looked up at her. For a moment, he seemed almost offended that she had not asked what was wrong. Then his eyes settled into the expression she knew best. Measured disappointment. "Maya," he said, "we need to discuss arrangements." Maya reached the bottom step. "What arrangements?" Margaret sighed. Not loudly, just enough to be heard. "Please do not make this difficult." Maya looked at her. "I asked a question." Daniel Pierce opened the folder. Richard lifted one hand, stopping him. He wanted to speak first. That mattered to him. "This has been an impossible week for everyone," Richard said. "Marcus's passing has created several legal and practical complications that must be handled carefully." Maya said nothing. Richard continued. "The estate is held by the Harrison Family Trust. I know where I live. You have been residing here as Marcus's spouse. I am Marcus's spouse." Margaret's mouth tightened. "Were," she said. The word crossed the hall like a blade sliding out of a sheath. Maya turned her head slowly. Margaret did not look away. It was the bravest thing she had done all week. Maya kept her voice even. "Say that again." Richard stepped in. "Margaret is grieving." "No," Maya said. "She is correcting paperwork." Daniel Pierce shifted his weight. One of the guards looked down. Richard's jaw moved once. "This house cannot remain in confusion," he said. "The girls need stability. They have a mother. They also have a family name." Maya almost smiled then. Not because anything was funny, because Marcus had warned her. Not with enough words, not in time. But he had warned her. "You mean your family name?" Richard ignored that. "Daniel has prepared temporary documentation regarding your departure from the estate." "My departure?" "Yes." Maya looked at the front doors. Rain streaked the glass beyond them. Wind pushed against the frame hard enough to make the old wood groan. "Tonight?" "The timing is unfortunate." "The timing is yours." Margaret stood then. Her face was pale under the chandelier light, but her eyes were clear and cold. "This house is not a shelter, Maya." There it was. Not wrapped in legal language. Not polished by Richard. The truth had slipped out in Margaret's voice. Maya looked at her for a long moment. "My husband died in that room 4 days ago." Margaret's lips trembled slightly. Whether from grief or irritation, Maya could not tell. "My son died in that room," Margaret said. "And I will not have his memory swallowed by chaos." Chaos. 2 children running through halls, a dog growling at guests, medical files on dining tables, your people coming and going. "My people?" Margaret heard herself too late. Richard closed his eyes. Daniel Pierce looked into the folder as if contracts could hide him. Maya's voice dropped. "Who exactly are my people, Margaret?" Margaret lifted her chin. "You know what I mean." "Yes," Maya said. "I do." The silence after that had weight. It pressed down on the marble. It pressed against the chandelier. It pressed against the portraits of dead Harrison men who had never once been asked to justify belonging in their own home. Richard broke it. "You will be provided with a reasonable stipend after probate." Maya looked back at him. "I did not ask you for money. You will need money. I needed money when Marcus was alive." That landed. Richard's eyes narrowed. Maya took 1 step forward. "I needed money when the insurance denied his scan." Richard said nothing. "I needed money when the medication changed and the copay tripled." Still nothing. "I needed money when your son could not walk from the bed to the bathroom without shaking, and you were having lawyers bring him documents while he was on pain medicine." Daniel Pierce stopped breathing for half a second. Maya saw it. Hard enough to make the sound crack through the hall. Hard enough for one of the guards to lift his head. Hard enough that upstairs, Major barked once. Deep. Violent. Immediate. Maya did not touch her cheek. She did not step back. She did not blink quickly. She let the sting sit there on her skin like evidence. Margaret's hand trembled. Her face changed as soon as she realized what she had done. Not regret. Fear of witnesses. Richard looked toward the guards. They looked away. Maya leaned closer to Margaret. "If my daughters had seen that," she said quietly, "you would have learned what I was trained to do with my hands." Margaret stepped back. Richard moved between them. "That is enough." "No," Maya said. "It was enough 7 months ago." She turned toward the stairs. Richard's voice followed her. "You are not taking Harrison property." Maya stopped. There it was. The next move. She turned back. "What property?" "The vehicle assigned to Marcus." "You mean the car I used to take him to chemotherapy?" "It belongs to the trust." "The girl's medical records." "Copies can be provided." "My wedding." "Jewelry." Margaret's face regained some of its strength. "The necklace is a Harrison heirloom." Maya looked down. The necklace sat at her throat. Small diamonds. Old gold. Margaret had insisted Maya wear it to the funeral. For appearances. Marcus had hated that necklace. He said it looked like a beautiful leash. Maya reached behind her neck. The clasp caught once in her hair. She freed it slowly, placed the necklace in her palm, and held it out. Margaret stepped forward to take it. Maya closed her fingers around it before Margaret could touch it. Marcus put a ring on my hand, Maya said. Not a collar on my neck. Then she dropped the necklace onto the marble floor between them. The sound was small. The meaning was not. Margaret stared at it as if Maya had dropped blood. Richard's face went still. The keys, he said. Maya reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the key ring. Marcus's car key. The estate gate fob. The side entrance key. The small silver key to the downstairs medication cabinet. She removed the brass key from the ring first. The apartment key. Marcus's old key. The one he had given her before the twins, before illness, before this house swallowed them. Richard noticed. That one as well. No, it may belong to a Harrison property. It belongs to a promise your son made before you got your hands on him. Richard stepped toward her. The guard on the left did the same. Maya looked at the guard. He stopped. Not because she was bigger. She was not. Because there was something in her face that told him size would not decide what happened next. Maya tossed the rest of the keys onto the table beside the stairs. Then she turned and walked up to her daughters. She did not run. Running would have given Richard the satisfaction of seeing fear. In the bedroom, the girls were awake. Of course they were. Children in dangerous houses learned to wake before the shouting reached them. Zoe sat upright, her eyes wide, both hands wrapped around Major's collar. Ava stood beside the suitcase, crying silently with Marcus's t-shirt pressed to her chest. Major was at the door, hackles raised, body low, waiting for Maya's command. Zoe looked at her mother's cheek. "Mommy?" Maya crossed the room and knelt. "I need you both to listen like soldiers." Ava hiccuped. "We're not soldiers." "No," Maya said, touching her face. "You're my daughters. That means better." Zoe's chin trembled. "Are we leaving?" "Yes." "Because Grandpa is mad?" Maya looked toward the hallway. "No, baby." She zipped the suitcase. "Because this house forgot how to be safe." Ava began to cry harder then. Not loud. Just enough that her little shoulders shook. "I want Daddy." The sentence entered Maya's chest and stayed there. For a second, she could not breathe around it. Then she pulled both girls into her arms. "I know," she whispered. "I want him too." Major pressed against them. Maya allowed exactly 5 seconds. Then she stood. There would be time to break later. There was no time now. She packed fast. Not like a woman leaving a house. Like a medic evacuating under fire. Documents. Medication. 2 dresses. 3 pairs of socks. Zoe's inhaler. Ava's rabbit. Marcus's gray t-shirt. The spiral notebook. Birth certificates from the folder under the mattress. Army medic bag. Phone charger. Small pouch of cash. $42.13 in the account. $7 in cash. 2 children. 1 dog. Move. She pulled black trash bags from the bathroom cabinet because suitcases belonged to people with mourning. The girls' clothes went into one. Shoes and blankets into another. The army medic bag went over her shoulder. The suitcase handle stuck once. She yanked it free. Downstairs, Richard was waiting at the bottom of the stairs with Daniel Pierce and the guards. Margaret had picked up the necklace. She held it in both hands now like something contaminated. Zoe held Maya's left hand. Ava held her right. Major walked 1 step ahead. The trash bags dragged against the marble behind them. No one in the hall spoke until Maya reached the door. Then Richard looked at the children. His voice changed. Softer. False. "Zoe, Ava, you may stay tonight if your mother needs time to make arrangements." Zoe pressed herself against Maya's leg. Ava hid her face in Maya's coat. Maya looked at Richard. "You do not get to throw out the mother and offer shelter to the children." Richard's mask cracked. "Do not make this about pride. It is about safety. It is about your inability to understand what is best for them." Maya almost laughed. Major growled. The sound rolled low through the hall. Richard's eyes dropped to the dog. "That animal is dangerous." "No," Maya said. "He recognizes it." Margaret's voice came thin and sharp. "Where will you even go?" Maya looked at the front doors. Rain hammered the glass now. Beyond the porch, the driveway disappeared into black water and wind. She had an old pickup parked near the service garage. One working headlight, half a tank if she was lucky. No plan beyond getting the girls out before the house taught them that cruelty was something they had to stand still for. She looked back at Margaret. "Somewhere you are not." Daniel Pierce cleared his throat. "Mrs. Harrison, I strongly advise you to sign acknowledgement of voluntary departure before you leave." Maya turned to him. "Voluntary?" He looked at the children, then at the guards, then back at his folder. "I am simply stating the document title." Maya stepped close enough that he could see the red mark on her cheek, then changed the title. He had no answer. Richard opened the front door himself. Cold rain blew into the hall. It hit Maya's face. It hit the girl's legs. Ava gasped. Zoe tightened her grip. Major stepped onto the threshold first and looked into the storm. For one moment, Maya saw the scene from somewhere above herself. A widow, 2 5-year-old girls, 2 black trash bags, an old army medic bag, a dog with a torn ear, a dead man's family standing warm behind them, a house with room for 30 guests, and no room for mercy. She could have begged. That was what they expected. Not loudly, not on her knees, just enough. One sentence. "Please, Richard. Not tonight. For the girls. Please." They had arranged the scene to produce that sentence. Richard with his papers, Margaret with her necklace, the guards, the rain, the hour, the children. They wanted Maya to hear herself ask for shelter from people who had spent years reminding her it was never hers. Maya looked down at Zoe, then Ava, then Major. Then she heard her grandmother's voice from a sidewalk in Baltimore years ago, steady as a hand on her shoulder. "A soldier does not beg for shelter. She builds it." Maya stepped into the rain. The girls followed. Major moved with them. Behind her, Margaret said something too soft for the storm to carry. Richard said nothing. That was how men like him try to win. They made silence feel like a locked door. Maya did not turn around. She crossed the marble steps slowly because Ava's shoes slipped on the wet stone. Rain soaked through Maya's coat before she reached the driveway. The trash bags dragged behind her, one tearing at the corner. A sleeve fell out. Zoe bent to grab it. Maya stopped her. "Leave it." "But it's Ava's sweater." "I said leave it." Zoe froze. Maya softened immediately. "Hands on me, baby. Both of you. We move together." They moved together. The pickup sat near the service garage under a broken security light. It looked smaller in the storm. Older, more tired. The left headlight was cloudy. The passenger door handle stuck. The bed was rusted along the wheel wells. It had been Maya's before Marcus, before the estate, before anyone in that house thought they had the power to decide whether she could stand. She opened the back door and helped the girls in. Ava climbed first, still clutching Marcus's shirt. Zoe followed, her wet dress sticking to her knees. Maya buckled them with hands that did not shake until she had to click Ava's belt twice. Major jumped into the front passenger seat without being told, then turned once, stood on the seat, and watched the estate through the windshield. Maya threw the trash bags into the truck bed, the army medic bag she kept with her, always. She placed it on the floor beneath the steering wheel. Then she sat behind the wheel and closed the door. For the first time, the storm became quiet. Not silent, just outside. The girls' breathing filled the cab. Ava whispered, "Mommy, are we bad?" Maya turned the key. The engine struggled once, twice. Started. She looked at her daughters in the rearview mirror. "No, baby." The old headlight flickered against the rain. "You are not bad." Zoe's voice was smaller. "Then why did they make us leave?" Maya gripped the wheel. "Because some people love names more than children. Because your father died, and they thought that meant I had no witness. Because money can make people forget God is listening. Because cruelty does not need a good reason." She said none of that. "Not yet. They made a choice," Maya said. "And now we make ours." She put the truck in reverse. At the top of the marble steps, Richard and Margaret stood beneath the covered entrance. Dry, still, framed by light. Maya looked at them one last time through the windshield. Richard's hand was in his pocket. Margaret held the necklace against her chest. Neither waved. Neither moved toward the children. That was the part Maya would remember longest. Not the slap, not the keys, not the rain. The fact that two little girls were being driven into a storm, and their grandparents stayed under the roof. Maya backed out slowly. The truck tires hissed over wet gravel. The iron gates opened after a delay, recognizing the old service code Marcus had once insisted she keep. For a second, Maya thought Richard might have changed it. He had not. Not yet. That small failure would become the last useful thing he ever gave her. The pickup rolled through the gates and onto the road. Behind them, the Harrison estate shrank in the rearview mirror until the rain swallowed it whole. Ava fell asleep first, still crying. Zoe stayed awake, watching her mother's face in the mirror. Major sat rigid beside Maya, eyes forward, body tense. The army medic bag rested against Maya's wet boot. Inside it, with a notebook, the documents, the birth certificates, and something Maya did not yet know was there. A hidden pocket. A red seal. A name Richard Harrison had dismissed because it was not his. Maya drove into the storm with $42 left. 2 daughters in the back seat and no roof waiting. She did not know where they would sleep. She only knew where they would not. Not under that roof. Not behind those gates. Not in a house where her daughters had to learn that love could be revoked by committee. The road ahead was dark. The wipers fought and lost. Water ran across the windshield in silver sheets. Maya kept both hands on the wheel and drove until the lights of the estate disappeared. Only then did she let one breath leave her body. Not a sob. Not yet. Just one breath. Major turned his head and looked down at the medic bag. Then, back of the road. Then down again. Maya did not notice. She was watching the storm. She was counting exits. She was counting exits. She was calculating gas. She was keeping her children alive. And somewhere inside the bag at her feet, the truth waited for teeth and timing. The first motel Maya found had a sign with 3 letters burned out. Vaxampi became V. Kenyas in red neon that buzzed against the rain like an insect dying in the dark. It sat off the highway beside a closed diner, a gas station with one working pump, and a liquor store with steel bars over the windows. Maya pulled into the lot at 11:38 p.m., with the pickup coughing every time she took her foot off the gas. The girls were asleep in the back seat, their heads tilted toward each other, cheeks shiny with dried rain and old tears. Major sat in the passenger seat, body rigid, eyes moving from door to window to mirror to dark shapes beyond the windshield. He had not relaxed since they left the estate. Neither had Maya. She parked under the weakest light in the lot because weak light was still light. Then she checked the mirrors. Left, right, rear. She waited 5 seconds. No movement. Only rain. Only the neon sign blinking against puddles. Only the sound of Zoe breathing through her mouth, because she always did that when she cried herself to sleep. Maya reached for her phone and opened the banking app. $42.13. She stared at the number until the screen dimmed. Then she tapped it awake and stared again, as if numbers changed when a mother looked at them long enough. They did not. The motel office had bulletproof glass and a night clerk with a gray beard, tired eyes, and a television playing silently behind him. He looked at Maya's wet coat, then at Major through the window, then at the 2 sleeping children in the truck. "Dog extra," he said. Maya stood with water dripping from her sleeves onto the dirty tile. "He's retired military. Still extra. How much?" 10. "How much is the room?" 39 plus tax. Maya did the math in her head. 39 plus tax was already more than she had if he charged the dog fee. She looked through the glass at the laminated sign taped beside the slot. No refunds, no visitors, no pets, cash preferred. The clerk followed her eyes. "Look," he said, softer now. "Card machine's been acting up. You got cash?" Maya had $7 folded inside the pocket of her jeans. $7 that was supposed to become breakfast. No. The clerk leaned back in his chair. For a second, his face closed the way. Faces close when people do not want to become involved in someone else's emergency. Maya knew that face. She had seen it in hospitals, in insurance offices, in waiting rooms, and people who were not cruel enough to enjoy saying no, but not brave enough to say yes. Then Ava shifted in the truck and pressed Marcus's gray t-shirt against the window in her sleep. The clerk saw it. He looked away too quickly. 39 flat, he said. No dog fee. Maya did not thank him loudly. Some mercies were too fragile for ceremony. She slid her card through the slot. The machine took 9 seconds. 9 seconds was a long time when $42 had to decide whether 2 children slept indoors. Approved. The clerk pushed a metal key through the slot. Room 6. Maya took it. Thank you. He nodded once. Door sticks. Lift when you turn. Room 6 was at the far end of the building beneath a gutter that overflowed in sheets. Maya woke Zoe first, then Ava. Both girls came out of sleep with the stunned obedience of children who had already learned the night was not finished with them. Are we home? Ava whispered. Maya opened the back door and unbuckled her. Not yet, baby. Zoe looked at the motel door, then at the rain, then at Maya's face. She did not ask the question. That was worse. Maya carried Ava on her hip, held Zoe's hand, and nodded for Major to follow. Major jumped down from the truck and immediately stepped in front of them. Not beside. In front. The old dog scanned the walkway, the office window, the dark gaps between parked cars. A man smoking under the stairwell looked at Major and decided not to finish his cigarette there. Maya saw that. Good boy, she murmured. Major did not look back. He was working. The room smelled like mildew, bleach, old carpet, and someone else's cigarettes trapped in the curtains. A lamp with a crooked shade flickered when Maya turned it on. The bedspread was brown, with a pattern designed to hide what people did not want to identify. The heater under the window rattled, but gave off no heat for the first minute. There was a Bible in the drawer, 2 towels on the rack, and a dead fly on the windowsill. Zoe stood just inside the door holding the trash bag of clothes. Ava stood beside her with Marcus's shirt against her mouth. Major walked the perimeter. Bathroom, window, bed, closet, door. He sniffed the gap beneath the adjoining wall, then came back and sat in front of the girls. Maya locked the door. Then the chain. Then she pushed the only chair under the knob. Zoe watched her do it. Is someone coming? No, Maya said. Then why do we need the chair? Maya turned from the door. Because locks are promises made by strangers. Because I do not trust this place. Because your grandfather had guards and papers and still called it family, she said. Because mommy likes extra safe. Zoe nodded like that made sense. Ava looked at the bed. Can we sleep? In a minute. Maya pulled the top blanket back and checked the sheets. Clean enough. Not good. Not terrible. Enough. That word had become a country she lived in. She took the girls' wet dresses off and dressed them in pajamas from the suitcase. Zoe's pajama top had a faded moon on it. Ava's pants were too short because she had grown fast that winter, and Maya had not had money to replace them. Maya rubbed their hair dry with 1 motel towel, then wrapped them in the second. The heater finally coughed warm air into the room. Ava climbed into bed first. Zoe stood beside the mattress. Mommy, yes. Is Daddy mad we left his house? Maya's hand stopped on the suitcase zipper. His house. Not our house. His house. Children heard what adults tried to hide. Maya sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Zoe between her knees. No, baby. But Grandpa said it was Harrison property. Maya closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. Your daddy loved people more than property. Zoe looked at the floor. Grandpa doesn't. No, Maya said. He does not. Ava's voice came small from the pillow. Daddy would have let Major stay. That one almost took Maya down. She reached over and touched Ava's cheek. Yes, Ava nodded, satisfied by that single truth. Then she closed her eyes. Children could sometimes survive on the smallest pieces of certainty. Maya waited until both girls were under the blanket. Major lay on the floor facing the door. Only then did Maya sit at the little table by the window and take inventory. Phone charger, birth certificates, Zoe's inhaler, Ava's rabbit, Marcus's shirt, spiral notebook, army medic bag, $7 cash, $42.13 became $2.13 after the motel charge cleared. She refreshed the banking app twice, though she already knew. $2.13. Less than a gallon of gas. Less than a carton of eggs. Less than the coffee Margaret had left half full on a side table that morning. Maya put the phone face down. Her wet coat clung to her shoulders. Her cheek still burned where Margaret's hand had landed. She had not touched it once. Touching it would make it feel personal. She needed it to stay evidence. The girls had not eaten since the funeral reception, where Margaret's chosen menu had included salmon bites, lamb skewers, and tiny desserts no child wanted. Maya had packed 2 rolls in a napkin before leaving the dining room because she had learned long ago that pride did not feed children. Now she opened napkin. The rolls were smashed flat from the pocket of her coat. She split them carefully. Half for Zoe when she woke, half for Ava, nothing for Maya. Major lifted his head. His eyes moved to the bread, then to Maya. "No," she whispered. "You ate this morning." He had not. Not enough. Still, he lowered his head again. The old dog had been trained to obey hunger the way soldiers obey orders. Maya looked away. That hurt too. At 12:16 a.m., Ava woke coughing. Maya was on her feet before the second cough. She gave her water from the bathroom tap after letting it run for 30 seconds. She checked Zoe's breathing. She checked the window latch. She checked the chair under the door. She checked Major. Then she checked the army medic bag. The ritual steadied her. Open. Count. Confirm. Close. She had done it in field tents. She had done it in hospital rooms. She had done it at the Harrison estate after everyone else went to sleep. Documents. Medication, notebook, birth certificates, charger, Major's service tag, the brass key. She paused at the key. It sat in the side pocket, dull gold against green canvas. The apartment it opened had been sold years ago. The door was gone. The promise was not. Maya touched the key once. Then she closed the bag. Major growled, not loud, not at the door, at the bag. Maya looked down. What? Major was standing now, his torn ear angled forward. His nose hovered near the lower seam of the medic bag. Maya frowned. "Major, leave it." He did not leave it. He stepped closer and pressed his nose against the canvas. Then he scratched once with his right paw. Sharp. Deliberate. "Major." He scratched again. The sound was too loud in the small room. Zoe shifted on the bed. Maya moved quickly, grabbing his collar. "Stop." Major did not pull against her. He simply lowered his head and bit the edge of the bag near the bottom seam, not hard enough to tear, hard enough to hold. Then he looked up at her. Maya knew that look. She had seen it before roadside bombs, before seizures, before a soldier in a recovery ward coded while nurses were still laughing at the desk. Major did not ask for attention. He reported. Maya released his collar slowly. "What did you find?" Major scratched the same spot again. Maya pulled the bag onto her lap and turned it toward the light. At first, she saw nothing but old canvas, mud stains, frayed stitching, and the black stencil of her name, Vance. Then she noticed the seam. The bottom seam was thicker than it should have been. Not ripped, not factory, hand-stitched, dark thread, uneven, running along the inside edge where a reinforcement patch covered the base. Maya's breath changed. She had used this bag for years. She knew every pocket, every stain, every buckle. She had never noticed this. Major whined once, low, urgent. Maya reached into the bathroom kit and found the small folding scissors she used to cut medical tape. She sat on the floor with the lamp pulled down beside her and began cutting the stitches. One thread, then another, then another. The canvas resisted. The hidden pocket had been sewn shut by someone in a hurry or someone who did not care if it was ever opened again. Maya kept cutting. The room seemed to narrow around the sound. Snip. Rain against glass. Snip. Heater rattle. Snip. Ava breathing. Snip. Major watching. The last thread gave way at 12:32 a.m. Maya slid 2 fingers into the opening. Paper. Thick, dry in the center, damp along one edge. She pulled it free slowly. A large cream envelope emerged from the hidden pocket. The back was sealed with dark red wax. Cracked but still intact. Stamped into the wax was a crest Maya did not recognize, a letter V wrapped inside the shape of an oak tree. Her last name appeared across the front in black ink. Not Harrison, not Mrs. Marcus Harrison, not the girl's mother, Maya Elaine Vance. For a moment, she forgot to breathe. Major sat beside her. His body leaned against her shoulder, warm and solid. Maya turned the envelope over. In the upper left corner was the name of a law firm, Vance, Calder and Whitmore, Philadelphia. Below that, a date. 3 years ago. Maya stared at it. 3 years. Marcus had still been alive 3 years ago. The girls had been too. Major had still been able to jump into the truck without help. 3 years ago, Maya had sold her second car to keep Marcus insured through the next treatment cycle. 3 years ago, she had stood in a pharmacy aisle and put back her own migraine medication so she could pay for his anti-nausea pills. 3 years ago, she had called Richard Harrison and asked whether the family could help with a specialist in Baltimore, and Richard had told her, "We must be careful not to pursue desperate options simply because they are expensive." 3 years. Maya's hands began to shake then, not from fear. From the body understanding before the mind agreed. She broke the wax seal. Inside were 12 pages, folded with legal precision. The first page was a formal notice. She read the first line once, then again. "Dear Ms. Vance, after exhaustive search and verification, this office has identified you as the sole living beneficiary of the Arthur Elijah Vance Legacy Trust." Maya blinked. Arthur Elijah Vance, her grandfather. Not grandmother Evelyn's husband, her mother's father. The man whose name had lived in family stories like a locked room. Arthur Vance, who had left Baltimore when Maya's mother was 17. Arthur Vance, who built something in transportation. Arthur Vance, who never came back. Arthur Vance, whose absence had been explained in fragments because pain always turns history into pieces. Maya read further. Real estate holdings, freight terminals, private equity transfers, deferred beneficiary claim, multiple certified notices returned, trust protected under sealed probate order, estimated liquid and non-liquid asset value exceeding $200 million. The number did not enter her like joy. It entered like a sound too loud to understand. 200 million. Maya looked at the sleeping girls. Zoe's purple star shoes sat near the heater, still wet from the rain. Ava's pajama pants had ridden up above her ankles. Marcus's shirt lay under her cheek. $200 million. And Marcus was dead. The room tilted. Maya put one hand on the carpet to steady herself. The carpet was rough under her palm. Real, dirty, present. $200 million had existed somewhere with her name attached to it, while Marcus's body shrank in a downstairs room at the Harrison estate. While she cut pills in half. While she argued with billing departments. While Zoe taped her shoe because Daddy had medicine that week. While Ava saved crackers and napkins. While Maya stood in funeral black and let Margaret clasp a necklace around her throat like borrowed permission. A sound came out of her then. Small. Broken. She covered her mouth before it woke the girls. Major moved immediately, pressing his head into her chest. Maya wrapped one arm around his neck and bent over him. She did not cry the way she might have if she were alone. She cried like a mother in a motel room with children sleeping 6 feet away. Silent, violent, contained. Her shoulders shook. Her teeth clenched. Her breath came through her nose in sharp, controlled pulls. She cried for Marcus. For the scan they delayed. For the specialist they did not see. For the medicine she rationed. For the shoes Zoe taped. For the crackers Ava saved. For every night she had sat at a kitchen table doing math beside a fortune that had been trying and failing to find her. Major stayed still. He had held soldiers through worse sounds. He knew the work. After a while, Maya lifted her head. Her face was wet. Her eyes were different. Not healed. Not happy. Awake. She gathered the pages and read them again from the beginning. This time she did not look at the number first. She looked at the addresses. The final certified notice had been sent to the Harrison estate 5 months earlier. Signed for by household staff. Received. Not returned. Maya went cold. 5 months earlier, Marcus had still been alive. 5 months earlier, Richard had begun redirecting mail. 5 months earlier, Marcus had said, "There's something he never told you." Papers. Maya reached for the spiral notebook and opened to February 12th. There it was. Marcus said Richard never told me something. Papers. She placed the law firm letter beside it. 2 pieces of the same wound. Major's eyes stayed on her face. Maya wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of her coat. Then she folded the legal documents carefully and slid them back into the envelope. The red wax seal was broken now. Good. Some seals needed breaking. She looked at the motel phone, then at the clock. 12:57 a.m. Too late to call a law office. Too late to fix what had happened. Not too late to decide what came next. Maya stood. Her knees hurt. Her back hurt. Her cheek hurt. None of it mattered. She placed the envelope inside the inner pocket of her coat, not back in the bag. Then she checked the chair under the door again. Checked the girls again. Checked the window again. Old habits. Living habits. She sat in the chair beside the bed and did not sleep. Zoe woke once before dawn and saw her mother sitting there. "Mommy? I'm here. Are we still leaving?" Maya looked at the red edge of the envelope tucked inside her coat. Then at Major, lying beside the bed with one eye open. "No, baby," she said quietly. "We already left." Zoe's eyes drifted closed. Maya watched the gray morning gather behind the motel curtains. For the first time since Marcus died, she did not feel the Harrison estate behind her like a hand on her neck. She felt something else. Not safety. Not yet. Direction. At 7:33 a.m., Maya stood, washed her face in cold water, braided Zoe's hair, tied Ava's shoes, and put Marcus's t-shirt into the suitcase. She did not have breakfast for them. She did not have gas money past maybe 20 miles. She did not know whether the letter was real, whether the trust still existed, whether the law firm would open its doors to a woman arriving in wet clothes with 2 children and a dog. But she knew the address: Vance, Calder, and Whitmore, Philadelphia. She wrote it on the back of the motel receipt. Then she looked down at Major. The old dog thumped his tail once. Maya touched the top of his head. "You found it?" she whispered. Major leaned into her hand. "No," Maya corrected herself. "You reported it." Then she picked up the army medic bag, lifted Ava onto her hip, took Zoe's hand, and opened the motel door to a morning washed clean by the storm. The pickup waited in the lot, old and dented, one headlight still clouded with rain. Maya looked at it and almost laughed. $200 million in her coat pocket, $2.13 in her bank account, a dead husband behind her, 2 daughters beside her, a military dog at her heel, and one address that might explain why a woman with nothing had been carrying a fortune under her feet. She loaded the girls into the truck. Major climbed in front. Maya sat behind the wheel and placed the motel receipt on the dashboard. Vance, Calder, and Whitmore. She started the engine. This time, when the truck coughed, she did not flinch. "Hold on, girls," she said. Zoe looked up. "Where are we going?" Maya pulled out of the motel lot and turned toward the city. "To find out who knew my name before I forgot it." Vance, Calder, and Whitmore occupied the 37th floor of a glass tower that looked like it had been designed by people who had never once worried about parking meters. The lobby smelled like polished stone, fresh orchids, and money that had learned to whisper. Maya parked the pickup 3 blocks away because the garage beneath the building charged $28 for the first hour. $28 was no longer the difference between survival and disaster, not if the envelope was real. But her body did not know that yet. Her body still counted. Her body still counted. Her body still looked at a parking sign and did math before hope could speak. She helped Zoe and Ava out of the back seat, smoothed their hair with wet fingers, and adjusted Ava's pajama pants so they looked less like pajamas from a motel room. Zoe held the suitcase handle with both hands. Ava carried Marcus's gray t-shirt folded against her chest. Major walked at Maya's left knee, old body stiff, eyes bright, every step a warning to the city not to come too close. People looked at them on the sidewalk. Not long. Just enough. A black woman in a wet funeral coat. Two little girls in mismatched shoes. A retired military dog with a torn ear. An old army medic bag over one shoulder. In this part of Philadelphia, people paid good money not to have to see stories that had not been edited for comfort. Maya did not lower her eyes. She walked through the revolving doors like she had an appointment with the truth. The security guard behind the marble desk looked at Major first. "No dogs," he said. Maya stopped. "Retired military working dog. This is a private building. And he is working." The guard looked her over. Her coat was still damp at the cuffs. Her cheek still carried the faint red shadow of Margaret's hand. The girl stood too close to her legs. The suitcase had one broken wheel. His face did what faces often did when they were deciding whether mercy would cost them something. Then a woman in a charcoal suit came through the lobby holding a tablet. She glanced at Major, then at Maya's posture, then at the children. Something in her expression changed. Not pity, recognition of danger contained. "Let them up," she said to the guard. He frowned. "Miss Pay." "Bell, policy says. Policy can take the next elevator." She looked at Maya. "What floor?" 37. The woman nodded once. "Then you want Whitmore." The elevator rose silently. Too silently. Zoe watched the numbers climb. Ava leaned against Maya's coat. Major sat without being told, facing the doors. Maya could feel the envelope inside her coat like a second heartbeat. 31. 32. 33. Her mouth was dry. 34. She had carried bleeding men through smoke with steadier hands than this. 35. Because blood was simple. Pressure here, airway there. Tourniquet high and tight. Keep them talking. Keep them breathing. Keep them here. But this was not blood. This was time. This was 3 years. This was Marcus trying to say papers while pain stole his voice. 36. This was $200 million arriving after the one person she would have spent it on had already been lowered into the ground. 37. The doors opened onto quiet. Not office quiet. Wealth quiet. Thick carpet. Glass walls. A reception desk made of pale stone. A wall of framed legal awards. A view of the city spread behind it all like something the firm had already won. The receptionist looked up. Her smile appeared, then weakened. "Good morning." Maya stepped forward. "I need to speak to someone about the Arthur Elijah Vance Legacy Trust." The receptionist's eyes moved to the children. The bag, the dog, the wet coat. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Then I can take your information and have someone contact you." Maya reached into her coat. The receptionist leaned back slightly, as if expecting something messy. Maya placed the cream envelope on the desk. The broken red seal faced upward. The letter V inside the oak tree caught the light. The receptionist's face changed before she touched it. Small muscles around her mouth went still. She looked at the envelope, then at Maya, then at the name written across the front. Maya Elaine Vance. "Where did you get this?" "My bag." The receptionist did not understand. Maya did not explain. The woman picked up the envelope with both hands now. Not like paper, like evidence. One moment. She stood too quickly and disappeared through a glass door. Maya stayed where she was. Zoe whispered, "Did we do something wrong?" "No." "Then why did she run?" Maya looked at the closed door. "Because somebody finally recognized my name." A minute passed, then another. Ava shifted from one foot to the other. Major did not move. Behind the glass wall, 2 people crossed quickly from one office to another. Then a third. Then an older black man in a navy suit came through the door holding the envelope. He was tall, thin, with silver hair at the temples and a face that had spent decades learning how to hide shock. He failed. For 1 second, he simply looked at Maya. Not her coat, not the suitcase, not the dog, her. Then he said, "Mrs. Vance?" Maya heard the name land in the room. Not Mrs. Harrison, not the girl's mother, not Marcus's widow. Ms. Vance. Her own name came back to her in a stranger's voice, and something in her chest loosened so sharply it almost hurt. Yes. The man stepped closer. I am Samuel Whitmore, managing partner. He looked at Zoe and Ava, then at Major. His voice softened. Please come with me. The conference room had a table long enough for 12 people in chairs that made no sound when pulled back. Samuel Whitmore ordered water, juice, fruit, toast, and scrambled eggs before Maya could say no. When the tray arrived, Ava stared at it like she was not sure it was allowed to be touched. Zoe looked at Maya first. That broke Maya more than the food. A 5-year-old should not need permission to be hungry. Eat, Maya said. Both girls obeyed. Major lay under the table with his head on his paws, but his eyes stayed on Samuel. Samuel did not sit until Maya did. That mattered. Maya noticed. He opened a leather file and placed the red-sealed envelope beside it. Miss Vance, before I explain anything, I need to verify your identity. Maya reached into the army medic bag and laid documents on the table in a clean row. Driver's license, military discharge papers, birth certificate, marriage certificate, the twins' birth certificates. Marcus's death certificate folded once because she had needed it for funeral paperwork. Samuel looked at the death certificate and went still. I am very sorry. Maya did not answer. Sorry was not useless. It was just too small for the room. He reviewed the documents carefully. Then he took off his glasses. I have waited a long time to meet you. Maya's throat tightened. You knew me. I knew of you. Then why didn't you find me? The question came out sharper than she intended. Samuel accepted it without defense. We tried. He opened the file. Your grandfather, Arthur Elijah Vance, created the trust 8 years before his death. My grandfather cut my mother off. Yes. Samuel's eyes lowered for a moment, and regretted it for the rest of his life. Maya did not move. He never came back. No. He let my mother bury herself working double shifts. Yes. He let my grandmother raise me in basements and borrowed rooms. Samuel looked at her then. There was no voyeur in his face for a moment. Only a man holding another man's failure. Yes. Maya leaned back. That honesty surprised her. Samuel turned a page. Arthur Vance was not a gentle man, Ms. Vance. I did not come here for gentle. No, he said. I can see that. He slid one document toward her. But near the end of his life, he became a truthful one. The trust names you as sole beneficiary, not a shared beneficiary, not conditional. Sole. Maya looked down. Her name was printed in black ink. Maya Elaine Vance. Sole beneficiary, irrevocable. Protected, liquid assets, real estate holdings, transportation shares, private trust accounts. Estimated value, $203,742,899. The numbers sat on the page calmly, as if calm numbers could not destroy a person. Maya stared at it. Her ears rang. Ava giggled softly over a piece of toast. Zoe whispered, Major wants eggs. Life kept moving around impossible things. Maya touched the paper. This is real? Yes. All of it? Yes. Available to me? A portion can be accessed immediately after identity confirmation. Larger transfers will require formal processing. But legally, Ms. Mornley, Vance, this is yours. Maya closed her eyes. She did not see cars. She did not see houses. She did not see jewelry. She saw Marcus sitting on the edge of their bed trying to button his shirt. She saw the pharmacy counter. She saw the denied scan. She saw Zoe taping her shoe. She saw Ava hiding crackers in her coat. She saw Richard telling her desperate options were not wise simply because they were expensive. How long? Maya asked. Samuel's face tightened. The trust became active 3 years ago. Maya opened her eyes. 3 years hit harder when another person said it. We sent notices to the addresses available through public records, military forwarding, medical billing records, and finally the Harrison estate. Maya's voice dropped. When? The final certified notice was received 5 months ago. By whom? Samuel looked at another page. An estate employee signed. Elise Marrow. Maya felt the room narrow. Elise. The housekeeper who had come to the bedroom door. The housekeeper who could not look her in the eye. Was there follow-up? Yes. Multiple calls were placed to the estate office. We were told Mrs. Offit, Maya Harrison, was unavailable due to a family medical crisis, and that correspondence would be forwarded. Maya laughed once. No humor, just air leaving a wound. Samuel's face hardened. Was it not forwarded? Maya looked at him. My husband died 4 days ago. Samuel closed the file slowly. The room went quiet except for Ava chewing toast and the soft click of Zoe's juice cup against the table. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out the spiral notebook. She opened to February 12 and turned it toward him. Marcus said Richard never told me something. Papers. Samuel read it. Then he looked at the death certificate. Then, at the trust notice. His voice changed. Not dramatically, professionally, dangerously. Ms. Vance, I need to ask you a direct question. Ask. Do you believe Richard Harrison intentionally withheld legal correspondence addressed to you? Maya looked at the red mark on her knuckles from carrying trash bags in the rain. Then she looked at her daughters eating breakfast in a law office because their grandparents had put them out in a storm. Yes. Samuel nodded once. Then we will treat this as an urgent matter. Maya leaned forward. No. Samuel paused. No? You will treat my children as the urgent matter. His expression shifted. She continued. Richard and Margaret Harrison threw us out last night in the rain. They took the car. They took the keys. They tried to take my husband's family necklace from my throat after, making me wear it at his funeral. They had security in the hall and a lawyer with voluntary departure papers. Samuel's jaw tightened with each sentence. They kept my husband's personal effects. They have medical records, legal papers, and a wooden box Marcus made for the girls before he died. What is in the box? Letters, photos, his watch, their hospital bracelets, the things my daughters will need when grief starts asking questions I cannot answer alone. Samuel picked up a pen. What do you want us to do? Maya looked at the city beyond the glass. For months, all she had wanted was one more day with Marcus. Money could not buy the day. Power could not return the breath. But power could draw a line. Maya turned back. I want emergency access to enough funds to secure housing, transportation, protection, and counsel. Done. I want a family law attorney by noon. Done. I want every document connected to Marcus's care reviewed. Done. I want a court order preventing Richard and Margaret Harrison from removing, destroying, transferring, or hiding anything that belonged to Marcus, me, or my daughters. Samuel was already writing. And I want to go back today. He looked up. Today? Maya's eyes did not move. They threw my children out at night so no one would see. I am going back in daylight. Zoe stopped chewing. Ava looked at her mother. Major lifted his head under the table. Samuel Whitmore set the pen down. For the first time since he entered, he looked less like a lawyer and more like a witness. Ms. Vance, he said carefully, this firm has represented the Vance Trust for 31 years. Your grandfather left instructions for many contingencies. He was, as I said, not gentle, but he was thorough. Maya waited. Samuel opened a smaller folder. There is a clause regarding obstruction. If any party knowingly interfered with your ability to claim the trust, this office is authorized to pursue civil recovery, injunctive relief, and referral for criminal investigation. Maya's face did not change. Good. Given the Harrison family's public standing, this may become visible. They should have thought about visibility before they put 2 5-year-olds in a storm. Samuel nodded. Then he stood. Not abruptly, with decision. I will make the calls. Maya stood too. Mr. Whitmore. He stopped. I need one more thing. Anything within the law. Maya looked at Zoe and Ava. The girls had stopped eating, both watching her now. She lowered her voice. When you speak to people today, do not call me Mrs. Harrison. Samuel understood immediately. He straightened. No, Miss Vance. The name steadied her. Outside the conference room, phones began ringing. Assistants moved quickly. Doors opened. A quiet office became a machine. But inside the glass room, Maya remained still for one more second. $200 million had not made her feel rich, not yet. It had made her feel late. Late to the scan. Late to the medicine. Late to Marcus. Late to the life she might have built if a letter had reached her before a grave did. Then Ava slid off her chair and came to Maya's side. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" Maya knelt. "No, baby." Zoe came too. "Is Grandpa in trouble?" Maya looked at the red-sealed envelope on the table. Then at Major. Then at the morning beyond the glass. "Yes," she said softly, "but not because of us." She pulled both girls close, for the first time since the funeral. She let herself hold them without calculating the next 5 minutes. Not long, just enough. Then she stood, picked up the army medic bag, and placed the broken red seal inside it. This time, she knew exactly what the bag carried. Not rescue, not revenge, proof. And proof, in the right hands, could open doors even old money had locked. By 19:18 a.m., the quiet office on the 37th floor had become a command post. Not loud, not chaotic, not like the emergency rooms Maya remembered, where voices rose because bodies were failing faster than systems could catch them. This was different. This was wealthy urgency. Phones rang once and were answered. Printers hummed behind closed doors. Assistants moved with legal pads against their chests. Attorneys stepped into glass rooms, spoke in low voices, came out with faces sharpened by purpose. Samuel Whitmore stood at the head of the conference table with his jacket off and his sleeves rolled once at the wrist. He had the look of a man who had spent 30 years waiting for an old promise to become a living. Woman with wet shoes and 2 hungry children, Maya sat at the table with Zoe on one side and Ava on the other. Both girls had eaten more than she expected. Toast, eggs, 2 orange slices each. Ava had slipped 1 piece of bacon into a napkin and tucked it into her pocket before Maya noticed. Old habits learned in one night could look exactly like habits learned over years. Maya reached across the table and held out her hand. Ava froze. "I was saving it," she whispered. "For later." Maya kept her hand open. "I know." Ava placed the napkin in her palm. Maya did not throw it away. She folded it neatly and set it beside Ava's plate. "You do not have to hide food from me." Ava's eyes lowered. Zoe watched everything. Samuel watched too, but only for a second before he looked away. Good men did that sometimes. They looked away not because they did not care, but because dignity needed privacy. Maya appreciated him for it. At 9:22, a woman entered the room carrying a black leather briefcase and no softness at all. She was in her early 50s, black, sharp-eyed, with close-cropped gray hair and a navy suit that looked less worn than issued. Samuel stepped aside. "Ms. Vance, this is Alicia Benton. Family law. Emergency custody. Guardianship. Protective orders." Alicia did not offer Maya pity. She offered her hand. Maya shook it. Alicia's grip was firm. "I read the summary," Alicia said. "I need details, not emotions. Emotions come later." Maya liked her immediately. "What details?" "Time of removal. 10:43 p.m. He called me downstairs. We left around 11,006. Witnesses: Richard Harrison, Margaret Harrison, Daniel Pierce. 2 private security guards. Housekeeper Elise Merrow came to get me. Any physical contact?" Maya paused. Alicia's eyes went to her cheek. Margaret slapped me. Zoe looked up fast. Ava stopped touching the napkin. Alicia's voice did not change. "In front of the children?" "No. Upstairs." But Major barked. "The girls woke before I got back." "Good." Maya stared at her. Alicia clarified. "Not good that it happened. Good that the children did not see it. Bad enough for the court. Less damaging for them." Maya nodded once. Alicia wrote without looking down. "Did Richard offer to keep the children if you left?" "Yes." Alicia's pen stopped. Exact wording. Maya heard it again in the hall. "Zoe. Ava. You may stay tonight if your mother needs time to make arrangements." She repeated it exactly. Alicia smiled then. It was not a kind smile. It was a courtroom smile. That was generous of him. Samuel glanced at her. Generous? He separated himself from every decent judge in Pennsylvania with one sentence. Maya did not smile. But something in her shoulders eased, not because Alicia was fierce, because she was precise. Precision was safer than rage. At 9:40, Samuel brought in a trust officer named Leonard Hayes, a small white man with nervous hands and a tablet full of numbers. He explained liquidity, authorization thresholds, same-day transfers, beneficiary verification, tax implications, asset freezes, private banking access, and secure disbursement accounts. Maya listened for 3 minutes before raising one hand. Leonard stopped mid-sentence. "Ms. Vance, how much can I access today without delaying legal action?" Leonard blinked. "Today? Yes. After identity confirmation and a managing partner override, we can release up to $1 million in emergency beneficiary funds by wire or cashier's check. More by tomorrow once the banking committee clears the $1 million is fine." The sentence sounded absurd. $1 million is fine. Yesterday, $39 had decided where her daughter slept. This morning, $1 million was a tool she did not even plan to admire. Leonard looked at Samuel. Samuel nodded. To what purpose should the disbursement be categorized? Maya looked at Alicia. Child safety, emergency housing, legal protection, transportation, preservation of estate property, security. Leonard typed quickly. Ava whispered, "Mommy, is 1 million more than 42? Zoe whispered back before Maya could answer. Yes, Ava. How much more? Zoe thought about it. Like a whole lot of 42s. Maya almost laughed. Almost. Then Marcus's absence entered the room again, quiet and merciless. He should have heard that. He would have laughed until he coughed. He would have told Ava he was going to pay her in waffles. Maya put one hand on the table and pressed her fingers flat until the moment passed. Samuel saw it. He said nothing. That made him wiser than most. By 10,005, Alicia had drafted an emergency petition. By 10:17, Samuel had contacted a judge's clerk. By 10:29, a preservation order was being prepared to prevent the Harrison estate from removing, destroying, transferring, or concealing personal property connected to Marcus Harrison, Maya Vance, Zoe Harrison, Ava Harrison, and any legal correspondence addressed to Maya Elaine Vance. By 10:41, the first wire cleared. Maya's phone buzzed. She looked down. Available balance, $1,002,062.13. The $2.13 were still there. That was what made her put the phone down, not the million. The 13 cents. A person's life did not change cleanly. Old poverty stayed attached to new money like mud on boots. You could walk into marble rooms. You could inherit a fortune. You could have attorneys moving around you like armor. And still, some part of you remembered the exact sound of coins in a pharmacy tray. Maya looked at the number once more. Then she locked the phone. "What do you want to buy first?" Leonard asked, attempting lightness. Maya looked at him. His smile disappeared. "Sorry. Do not apologize," she said. "Just do not ask that like this is a prize." Leonard lowered his eyes. "Yes, ma'am." "It is not a prize," Maya said. "It is late." No one spoke for a moment. Then Samuel said quietly, "Yes, it is." At 11,006, a security consultant arrived. His name was Darren Cole, retired Marine, broad-shouldered, calm, with a scar running from his left temple into his hairline. He did not look at Major like a problem. He crouched at a respectful distance and held out the back of his hand. Major sniffed once, then turned away. Darren stood. "That means he accepts I'm not worth biting yet." Maya looked at him. "You know dogs? I know working dogs. Yours is still on duty. He always is." Darren nodded. "Then my team works around him, not over him." That was the first thing he said that made Maya trust him. Not fully. "Enough." Darren outlined the plan. 2 unmarked SUVs. 4 licensed protection agents. 1 vehicle ahead, 1 behind. No flashing lights. No performance. No intimidation beyond what was legally necessary. Maya listened. Then she said, "My pickup leads." Darren paused. "Ms. Morse. Vance, tactically, that is not ideal. I am not arriving hidden in the middle of someone else's formation. Understood. My children left that house in my truck. We return in my truck." Darren studied her for half a second, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Samuel looked like he wanted to object. Alicia stopped him with one glance. Good lawyers knew when symbolism mattered more than efficiency. At 11:30, Alicia arranged for child advocates to be on call if the court required interviews. Maya refused to put Zoe and Ava through anything that day unless absolutely necessary. Alicia agreed. The less they speak, the better. Your notes, witness list, and circumstances are enough for emergency relief. My notes? Maya touched the spiral notebook. Alicia pointed to it. That notebook may be the cleanest thing in this entire case. Maya looked at the worn cover. It had coffee stains, folded corners, and one sticker Ava had placed on it upside down. Clean? Dates, details, no drama. Judges love women who wrote things down before they knew they would need them. Maya slid the notebook closer. For 7 months, it had felt like she was writing into a hole. Now the hole had become a record. At noon, Samuel suggested lunch. Maya said the girls had eaten enough. Zoe immediately looked at the empty toast plate. Alicia saw it. So they have not eaten enough. Maya closed her eyes briefly. That was fatigue, not pride. Fatigue made every simple thing feel like a test. Alicia softened her voice by half an inch. "Food is evidence of care, Ms. Vance. Let them eat." Maya nodded. Lunch arrived in cardboard containers instead of silver trays because Alicia told someone, "No performance food, chicken soup, rice, applesauce, bottled water." Maya ate because Ava watched her. Ava had become the kind of child who needed to see her mother swallow before she trusted abundance. Maya hated Richard for that more than she hated him for the slap he had not thrown. Children copied survival before they understood it. At 12:36, Samuel placed a new phone on the table. For secure communication, Maya pushed it back. "My phone works. Your phone may be connected to accounts or plans the Harrison family can access." Maya stopped. Richard had arranged the family phone plan 2 years ago when Marcus became too sick to manage bills. Of course he had. She took the new phone. "Transfer my contacts." Already started. At 12:52, Leonard placed a debit card and temporary private banking credentials in front of her. Maya did not touch the card. It was black, heavy, plain. No logo on the front, except a small silver mark. A card designed for people who did not need cards to prove anything. She thought of Margaret unclasping the necklace. "That was never yours. You were only borrowing our name." Maya picked up the card and slid it into the same wallet where she kept the motel receipt. Names could be borrowed. Survival could not. At 1004, Maya made her first purchase as the beneficiary of the Vance Trust. Not a car, not clothes, not jewelry, not revenge. She called the motel office. The same clerk answered. "Room 6? "Yes," Maya said. "This is Maya Vance." "Oh. You leave something?" "No. I need to pay for the next 7 nights." The clerk hesitated. "You coming back?" "No." "Then why?" Maya looked through the glass wall at Zoe and Ava drawing on legal pads with borrowed pens. "Because someone else will." The clerk went quiet. Maya continued. "And if a woman comes in with children and a dog, you do not charge the dog fee." A soft breath on the other end. "No, ma'am." "I am serious." "So am I." She gave him the card number. When she hung up, Samuel was watching her. "What?" Maya asked. "Nothing." "It was $39. "No," Samuel said. "It was not." Maya looked away first. At 1:30, Alicia received confirmation that the emergency preservation order would be signed pending formal filing. By 1:47, the first draft of a temporary protective petition was complete. By 2003, Darren's team was downstairs. By 2018, a moving company with bonded staff and inventory cameras was on standby. By 2:30, A forensic document specialist was assigned to review Harrison estate mail logs, staff signatures, and any trust correspondence. Every minute built a wall. Not a pretty wall. Not a wall made of gates and lawns. A working wall. Legal, financial, physical. Built for children. Maya stood by the window and looked down at the city. 37 floors below, people moved through crosswalks with umbrellas, briefcases, coffee, places to be. Yesterday, she had been one of them in the worst way. A woman moving because stopping would have swallowed her. Today, she was still moving. The difference was that the world had been forced to move with her. Zoe came to stand beside her. "Mommy?" "Yes." "Are we going back to Grandpa's house?" Maya crouched so their eyes were level. "We are going back to get what belongs to us." "Are we staying there?" "No." "Good." The word was small, certain. Maya brushed a curl from Zoe's forehead. "Why good?" Zoe looked toward Ava, who was coloring Major with a green pen. "Because the walls listened there." Maya swallowed. "What did they hear?" Zoe shrugged. "Everything." "But they never helped." Maya pulled her daughter close, not too tight. Zoe did not like too tight when she was trying to be brave. Ava looked up. "Can Major bite Grandpa?" "No," Maya said. Darren, standing near the door, coughed once into his fist. Maya looked at him. He looked at the ceiling. Ava frowned. "Not even a little?" "Not even a little." "Why?" "Because Major follows orders." Ava considered that. "Can I growl?" Maya wanted to say no. Then she thought of Margaret's hand. Richard's papers. The rain on the marble. She looked at her 5-year-old daughter and said, quietly. Ava made the smallest growl in the world. Zoe giggled. For 3 seconds, the conference room became human. Then Alicia walked in with papers in her hand, and the future returned to the table. "We have enough to go," she said. Samuel checked his watch. "Convoy leaves at 3. Maya shook her head. "Not convoy." Alicia looked up. "What do you want to call it?" Maya picked up Marcus's gray t-shirt and folded it into the army medic bag. "A return." No one corrected her. At 2:45, they took the private elevator down. Maya carried the army medic bag. Zoe carried Ava's rabbit because Ava wanted both hands free to hold Maya and touch Major. Ava held Maya's coat with one hand and Major's harness with the other. Darren walked ahead. Alicia walked beside Samuel. Behind them came 2 associates with court papers, 1 trust officer and a document videographer who had been instructed to record property recovery but not the children. In the lobby, the guard who had said no dogs stood straighter when he saw them. Miss Dis. Belle from the morning stood near the security desk. She looked at Maya and gave the smallest nod. Maya returned it. Some people opened doors without needing credit. Outside, the old pickup waited at the curb. Someone from Darren's team had brought it around. Someone else had wiped the windshield. The truck looked exactly the same. Dented, rust along the bed, 1 cloudy headlight, the kind of vehicle Margaret would have hated seeing in front of her house in daylight. Good. Behind it waited 2 black SUVs, a white moving truck, and a dark sedan carrying Alicia's associate with the signed emergency order. Maya opened the back door and buckled the girls in herself. Money would not outsource motherhood. Not today. Not ever. Major jumped into the passenger seat and settled like a captain returning to post. Darren approached the driver's window. "We will follow your lead." Maya nodded. "Do not enter the house unless I say." "Understood." "Do not touch Richard unless he touches first." "Understood." "Do not let Margaret near my daughters." Darren's face changed, only slightly. "But enough." "Absolutely understood." Samuel stepped to the window next. "Ms. Vance, once we arrive, let Alicia speak first." Maya looked through the windshield. The afternoon sky was clean after the storm, pale blue over wet streets. "No," Samuel hesitated. "I strongly advise I will let Alicia file first. I will let you read first. But I speak first if Richard speaks to my children." Samuel accepted that. Alicia called from the sidewalk. "That is reasonable." Samuel sighed. Of course you would say that. Alicia smiled without warmth. She is the mother. Maya started the engine. It coughed once. just as it had outside the motel. This time, the sound did not embarrass her. It announced her. Zoe leaned forward from the back seat. "Mommy?" "Yes." "Are we rich now?" Maya looked at her daughter in the mirror. The truthful answer was yes. The useful answer was harder. "We are protected now," she said. Zoe thought about that, then nodded. Ava whispered, "Can protected people get pancakes?" Maya smiled for the first time that day. "Yes, baby." "Today?" "After we get Daddy's box." Ava hugged Marcus's t-shirt. "Okay." Maya pulled away from the curb. The pickup moved first. The SUVs followed. The moving truck fell in behind them. No sirens, no flashing lights, no spectacle. Just a dented old pickup leading wealth, law, and consequence toward the house that had mistaken a widow for someone easy to erase. Maya drove with both hands on the wheel. Major faced forward. The army medic bag rested on the floor by her feet. Inside it were the notebook, the broken red seal, the trust papers, Marcus's shirt, and the brass key to a door that no longer existed. Maya did not need that door anymore. She was building another one. Behind her, Zoe and Ava watched the city pass. Ahead of her, the Harrison estate waited behind iron gates. Richard would still be standing somewhere inside it, surrounded by portraits, documents, and old confidence. Margaret would still be holding herself together with pearls and cruelty. Daniel Pierce would still think paper could make a storm voluntary. They had seen Maya leave in the rain. Now they would see her return in daylight. Not to beg, not to boast, not to ask permission. To collect what belonged to her dead husband, to protect what belonged to her daughters, and to teach the Harrison family the difference between a woman with nowhere to go and a woman who had simply not opened the right envelope yet. The iron gates of the Harrison estate opened at 3:42 p.m., not for Richard, not for Margaret, not for another senator, donor, board member, or charity chair stepping out of a black car with polished shoes and rehearsed sympathy. They opened for Maya Vance's old pickup. The same pickup that had rolled through those gates in the rain with one working headlight, 2 crying children, and $42 left in the world. Now it came back in daylight. Dented. Rust along the wheel wells. Clouded headlight. Army medic bag on the floor. Major in the passenger seat. Zoe and Ava buckled in the back, and behind it, moving like quiet weather, came 2 black SUVs, a white moving truck, Alicia Benton's sedan, Samuel Whitmore's car, and 3 people carrying court orders. Richard Harrison had not written, approved, or controlled. The estate looked different in daylight. Smaller somehow. Not less expensive. Never that. The lawns were still trimmed. The windows still tall. The white columns still clean from the night's rain. But yesterday, the house had looked like power. Today, it looked like a building waiting to be searched. Maya stopped the pickup in the circular drive at the bottom of the marble steps. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Major stood on the passenger seat and looked at the front doors. He did not growl. That would have been too generous. He simply watched. Darren's lead SUV stopped behind the truck. The moving truck pulled along the side drive. Alicia stepped out first, court folder in one hand, phone in the other. Samuel followed, face calm, eyes not. Darren's team took positions without theater. No hands-on weapons. No raised voices. Just bodies placed where consequence might need a wall. Maya opened her door. The air smelled like wet grass, old stone, and expensive flowers planted by people who never touched dirt. She walked around the truck and opened the back door. Zoe looked at the house. Ava looked at Maya. "Do we have to go inside?" Maya crouched. "No." "Then why are we here?" "To get Daddy's box." Ava hugged Marcus's gray t-shirt. "And then pancakes?" Maya touched her cheek. "And then pancakes?" Maya touched her cheek. "And then pancakes." Zoe looked past her mother at the marble steps. "That's where we got wet." "Yes. Are we going to get wet again?" Maya glanced up at the clear sky. "No, baby." Zoe's eyes stayed on the steps. "I mean inside." Maya understood. She took Zoe's hand. "No." That was the first promise the money made useful. The front door opened before Maya reached the first step. Richard stood there. He had changed clothes since morning. Dark suit, blue tie, hair combed, face arranged. A man prepared for a meeting, not a reckoning. Margaret appeared behind him in a cream dress, pearls at her throat again, makeup soft enough to look wounded from a distance. Daniel Pierce stood near the side table with a folder in his hand. Elise, the housekeeper, hovered in the hallway behind them, white-faced, eyes fixed on Maya's coat pocket as if she could see the red-sealed envelope through wool. Richard's gaze moved over the scene. Pickup, SUVs, moving truck, lawyers, security, then Maya. He did not look at the girls first. Maya noticed. So did Alicia. Maya noticed. So did Alicia. Maya, Richard said. His voice carried down the steps, controlled and paternal. What is this? Maya stopped one step below the porch. The part you did not schedule. Richard's mouth tightened. Margaret stepped forward, one hand against her chest. Maya, dear, the girls must be exhausted. Bring them inside and let us discuss this like family. Major growled then. Low. One clean note. Ava whispered from the truck. Good boy. Maya did not turn around. Do not call me dear. Margaret's eyes flashed. Richard raised one hand to quiet her. Everyone is grieving, he said. Last night became more emotional than any of us intended. Alicia's laugh was soft, not amused, just disbelief in sound form. Richard looked at her. And you are? Alicia Benton, counsel for Maya Elaine Vance and her minor children. Daniel Pierce descended 2 steps. Richard, do not engage without. Alicia held up the signed order. Too late. Daniel stopped. The folder in his hand lowered half an inch. Alicia climbed the steps and placed the first document into his hands. Emergency preservation order. Effective immediately. The Harrison estate is prohibited from removing, destroying, transferring, concealing, or altering personal property belonging to Maya Vance, Marcus Harrison, Zoe Harrison, Ava Harrison, or any correspondence addressed to Maya Elaine Vance. Daniel read the heading. His face changed faster than Richard's. Lawyers recognized danger before clients did. Richard looked at Samuel. Whitmore. Samuel stepped beside Alicia. Richard. The name landed with history in it. Richard's confidence flickered. You are representing her? No, Samuel said. I represent the Vance Legacy Trust. Margaret blinked. The what? Maya watched Richard's face. That was the first reward of the day. Not his fear, his confusion. For once, the room had a door he had not known existed. Samuel handed Daniel a second packet. Notice of Beneficiary Obstruction Review. Notice of Trust Correspondence Inquiry. Notice to preserve the state mail logs, staff signatures, surveillance footage, internal communications, and all documents relating to medical, financial, or legal matters involving Marcus Harrison or Maya Vance Harrison during the last 12 months. Daniel's lips parted. This is excessive. Alicia smiled. No, last night was excessive. This is organized. Richard stepped down one stair. Maya, whatever these people have told you, you need to be careful. Sudden money attracts opportunists. Maya almost admired him then. Almost. A man could stand in front of a woman he had thrown into a storm and still try to warn her about other people. I met opportunists when I married your son, she said. Margaret inhaled sharply. Richard's eyes hardened. You are still speaking to Marcus's father. No, Maya said. I am speaking to the man who called my children property until a lawyer arrived. Richard's mask slipped. Do not twist my words. I wrote them down. Alicia glanced at the army medic bag. Samuel did too. Richard followed their eyes and saw the bag. For the first time, he looked uneasy. Not because of the bag itself, because he had never considered that Maya might keep records in something he dismissed as poor and old. Margaret tried a different voice. The soft one. The public one. Maya, darling, if this is about last night, we can apologize. We were devastated. We had just buried our son. Maya walked up one more step. Your son was my husband. Of course. My children's father. Yes. The man whose pain you used as a hallway for paperwork. Margaret's mouth closed. Richard said, that is a serious accusation. Maya looked at him. Good. It should match the act. Daniel stepped closer to Richard and whispered, We should move inside. Alicia heard him. No one moves inside until inventory begins. This is private property, Daniel said. Alicia lifted another page. And this is a signed court order. Samuel looked toward the moving truck. Begin exterior recording. The document videographer raised a camera. Richard's head snapped toward him. No cameras. Alicia did not blink. Yes, cameras. Property recovery. Chain of custody. No children on film. Darren's team opened the side of the moving truck. 2 bonded movers stepped out with inventory tablets, gloves, and sealed bins. Not one of them looked impressed by the estate. That made the house feel even smaller. Richard turned back to Maya. You cannot simply invade my home because some trust lawyer filled your head with fantasies. Maya reached into her coat and pulled out a copy of the first page. Not the full trust file, just enough. Her name, Arthur Elijah Vance, sole beneficiary, emergency authority. Samuel had advised her not to show it unless necessary. Maya decided necessary had arrived. She held it out. Richard did not take it. Daniel did. He read 3 lines and lost color. Margaret stared at Daniel's face. What is it? Daniel did not answer. Richard took the page from him. His eyes moved once across the text. Then again. Maya watched the moment old money met older guilt. Arthur Vance had not been invited to their tables. His name had not appeared in their circles. His fortune had been built through freight yards, warehouses, black drivers, union fights, and land Richard's friends had ignored until men like Arthur made it valuable. It was not Harrison money. That made it worse for Richard. Maya did not need his name to stand anymore. Richard lowered the page. How long have you known? Since Major found the letter your house received 5 months ago. Elise made a small sound behind Margaret. Maya looked past them at the housekeeper. Elise's eyes filled immediately. I'm sorry, Elise whispered. Richard turned. Elise. She flinched. Maya's voice cut through. Do not speak to her. Everyone froze. Maya stepped onto the porch. She brought me your message last night. She did not write it. Elise covered her mouth. Samuel made a note. Daniel looked like he wished he had chosen tax law. Richard tried again. Maya, all of this is a misunderstanding created by grief. There it was, the sentence. The bridge he expected her to cross. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Behind her, Zoe and Ava sat in the truck watching through the windshield. Major stood at the bottom of the steps now, body still, eyes on Richard's hands. Maya remembered Marcus on the bed. She remembered the pulse stopping under her fingers. She remembered Ava asking if they were bad. She remembered Zoe asking whether they would get wet inside. And then she said it. No, Richard. Grief buried your son. Cruelty buried your family. The porch went silent. Not dramatic silence, real silence. The kind that comes when every person present understands a line has been drawn and no money in the world can move it back. Margaret's face folded for half a second. Not into remorse, into the terror of being seen accurately. Richard stared at Maya like he had never once considered that she could say a sentence he could not buy, correct, or punish. Alicia stepped beside Maya. We are entering now to recover listed property. Daniel opened his mouth. Alicia lifted the order. Object in court. No one stopped them. Maya did not take the girls inside. That mattered. She had promised. Zoe and Ava stayed in the pickup with Darren's female agent sitting in the back seat beside them, showing Ava how to draw Major with the right number of years. Major went with Maya. The house smelled the same as it had the night before. Polished wood, lilies, cold air. But Maya was not the same person walking through it. She did not look at the portraits. She did not look at the staircase. She did not look at the dining room where people had used silver forks hours after her husband was lowered into the ground. She walked straight to Marcus's suite. The door was closed. Maya opened it herself. The room had been cleared too quickly. Bed removed. Machines gone. Curtains tied back. A vase of white flowers already placed on the side table, as if death could be decorated into absence. For 1 second, she had to place her hand on the doorframe. Major leaned against her leg. Samuel stood behind her but did not enter. Alicia stayed in the hallway. Maya crossed the room to the closet. Marcus's clothes were still there. Suits, shirts, the old college hoodie he had refused to throw away. A blue sweater with one elbow thin from wear. Maya touched the sleeve. Then she let it go. Not everything could be carried today. The wooden box sat on the top shelf, pushed behind 2 garment bags. Maya pulled it down with both hands. It was heavier than she remembered. Walnut. Brass latch. Marcus had made it badly and proudly in a woodworking class during the first year of their marriage. The corners were uneven. The lid did not close perfectly. He had carved 3 letters into the bottom. Z. A.M. Zoe. Ava. Maya. Maya opened it. The watch was there. The hospital bracelets. 2 envelopes addressed to the girls. 1 addressed to Maya. A photo of Marcus holding both newborns with terror and wonder on his face. And beneath it, a folded page she had never seen before. Maya did not read it there. Not in that room. Not under that roof. She closed the box. Mine, she thought. Not because it belonged to her legally. Because it belonged to grief that had not been allowed to breathe. The movers recovered the rest under Alicia's direction. Medical logs, insurance letters, the folder from Marcus's bedside drawer, the twins' remaining clothes, Maya's wedding ring box, Major's extra medication, a small framed photograph from the nursery, the service flag Marcus had ordered after Maya's retirement ceremony, even though she told him not to make a big deal out of it. Inventory photographed, sealed, signed, every item made visible, every item made harder to erase. In Richard's study, Samuel found what he had expected and hoped not to find. A stack of mail logs, 3 certified delivery records, 1 internal note from the estate office. Vance, Calder, and Whitmore correspondence received. Hold for R.H. Daniel closed his eyes when he saw it. Alicia took a photograph before anyone touched the page. Richard stood in the doorway. That proves nothing. Samuel looked up. No, Richard. It proves where we start. Margaret began crying then, quietly, perfectly. The kind of crying women like her used when consequences entered the room and they wanted to be mistaken for pain. Maya watched her from the hallway. Once, that sound might have made her feel cruel for continuing. Not anymore. Pity was not the same as permission. At 5:51 p.m., Maya walked out of the house carrying Marcus's wooden box. No one else touched it. Major walked beside her. Samuel carried the sealed evidence packet. Alicia carried the signed inventory. The movers carried bins to the truck. Richard remained in the doorway. Margaret stood behind him, one hand over her mouth. For the first time since Maya had known them, they looked like people inside a house instead of owners of one. Zoe saw the box and pressed both hands to the window. Ava bounced once. Daddy's box? Maya nodded. Ava smiled. Small, relieved. That smile was worth more than every number in the trust file. Richard came down 1 step. Maya. Darren shifted. Major stopped. Maya turned. Richard's voice was lower now, not kind. Strategic. Think carefully about what you are doing. Public conflict helps no one. Marcus would not want his family destroyed. Maya looked at the wooden box in her arms, then at the daughters he had let leave in the rain. Marcus wanted his children safe. They are safe. No, Maya said. They are Harrison safe. That means protected when convenient and disposable when embarrassing. Richard's face flushed. Margaret whispered, "That is unfair." Maya looked at her. "You slapped a widow in front of guards and sent children into a storm." Margaret could not answer. Maya stepped closer to Richard. "Not close enough for drama. Close enough for truth. You may keep the house. You may keep the portraits. You may keep every room where you learned to confuse control with love." She lifted the box slightly. "I am taking what matters." Then she turned away. That was what broke the moment. Not an insult, not a threat. The fact that she was finished. Richard Harrison had built a life on making people wait for his last word. Maya did not give it to him. She buckled Zoe and Ava herself. She placed Marcus's box between them. Zoe put one hand on the lid. Ava put the folded gray t-shirt on top of it like a blanket. Major climbed into the passenger seat. Maya set the army medic bag at her feet. Before she closed the door, Alicia leaned in. "The court will hear the temporary protection petition tomorrow morning." "Good," Samuel will file the trust obstruction packet tonight. Good. This is only the beginning. Maya looked at the house. No, she said. This is the end of them deciding where I stand. Alicia nodded. That too. Maya started the pickup. The engine coughed, caught, and held. Behind her, the SUVs and moving truck prepared to follow. At the top of the steps, Richard and Margaret stood side by side beneath the same roof that had kept them dry the night before. This time, there was no storm to hide behind. Only daylight, only witnesses, only a record. Maya drove away first, slowly. Not because the truck was old, because she wanted the girls to see it. The gates opened. The pickup crossed the property line. Zoe whispered, "Are they still our grandparents?" Maya kept her eyes on the road. "They are your father's parents." Ava frowned. "That's not the same?" "No, baby." Maya looked at them in the mirror. Family is what people do when the door is open. Zoe thought about that for a long time. Then she put her hand on Marcus's box again. "Then Daddy is still family." Maya's throat tightened. "Yes." Ava looked at Major. "Major too. Major too." Major huffed from the front seat. For the first time all day, Maya smiled. "Yes. Major too." Behind them, the Harrison estate disappeared between the trees, but Consequence stayed. By sunset, Samuel Whitmore had filed the obstruction notice. By morning, the local judge granted temporary restrictions preventing Richard and Margaret from unsupervised contact with the twins. Within 48 hours, Harrison Capital's board received notice of an internal review tied to Richard's handling of family and trust-related documents. Within a week, the charity council Margaret chaired requested her resignation after security footage from the front hall became part of a sealed court filing, and then, as sealed things often do around powerful people with enemies, found its way to people who knew exactly what they were looking at. The footage had no sound. It did not need sound. It chilled Margaret's hand. Maya's stillness. The children coming down with trash bags. The front door opening into rain. Richard standing under a roof while his granddaughters walked out. That was enough. People who had praised the Harrisons for decades began using careful words. Disturbing. Unfortunate. Pending review. Private family matter. Then, quietly, they stopped returning calls. That was how old money bled. Not all at once. Invitation by invitation. Board seat by board seat. Name by name. Maya did not watch most of it happen. She had pancakes to buy. She had daughters to bathe. She had a wooden box to open when the room was safe enough for grief. She had a life to build without asking anyone where she was allowed to stand. And that night, in a hotel suite Samuel had arranged but Maya had inspected herself, Zoe and Ava slept in clean pajamas with Marcus's box on the dresser and Major across the door. Maya sat beside the window long after they fell asleep. The city lights blurred against the glass. The trust papers rested on the table. The army medic bag sat at her feet. For the first time in days, no one was asking her to leave. For the first time in months, no one was telling her what she could afford. For the first time since Marcus died, Maya let herself whisper the truth into the room. "We are safe tonight." Major opened one eye, then closed it. He accepted the report. 1 year later, the house Maya built did not look like revenge. That surprised people who expected $200 million to turn pain into marble. There were no golden gates, no fountain, no chandelier hanging over a room too large for laughter. The house sat on 6 acres outside the city, behind a simple black fence with a keypad, floodlights, cameras, and a front porch wide enough for children to run across without being told to slow down. Maya chose it because every bedroom had a window facing morning light. She chose it because the kitchen opened into the living room, so no one cooking had to be alone. She chose it because Zoe and Ava could see the driveway from their upstairs window and know who was coming before the doorbell rang. Safety was not a feeling to Maya. Safety was design. Locks that worked, lights that reached corners, documents in fireproof boxes, emergency bags in the hall closet, a pantry that stayed full even when no one was hungry, a dog bed beside every doorway because Major had decided retirement was still a suggestion. Zoe and Ava had changed in small ways first. They stopped asking if they were allowed to finish food. They stopped hiding crackers in pockets. Zoe no longer checked Maya's face before laughing loudly. Ava no longer slept with her shoes beside the bed. Some nights, one of them still woke crying for Marcus. Grief did not vanish because money entered the room. Money bought therapists, safe walls, good shoes, warm food, and time. It did not buy a father's voice back. It did not put Marcus at the breakfast table. It did not make the empty chair less empty. But it gave Maya enough space to answer the pain without fear counting in the corner. On the first anniversary of the night they left the Harrison estate, Maya opened Marcus's wooden box with the girls between her on the living room rug. Major lay behind them with his gray muzzle on his paws. Inside were the watch, the hospital bracelets, the photo of Marcus holding both newborns, the letter addressed to Maya. She had waited a year to read it because some doors should not be opened while you are still bleeding, on the floor in front of them. Her hands were steady when she unfolded the page. Maya, if you are reading this, then I failed to stay. I am sorry for that most of all. My father will try to make you feel temporary. My mother will try to make you feel borrowed. Do not believe either of them. You were never a guest in my life. You were the life. Tell Zoe I loved the way she studied the world before trusting it. Tell Ava I loved the way she made joy sound like noise. Tell them the Harrison name is something they inherited. But your courage is what will raise them. And if they ever ask what kind of man their father was, tell them I was smart enough to choose their mother. Maya did not cry loudly. Neither did the girls. They leaned into her, one on each side, and the three of them sat there until the afternoon light moved across the floor and touched Major's paws. That evening, Maya signed the final papers for the Major House Initiative. It began with 12 emergency apartments for military widows, single mothers, and women pushed out of homes after death, divorce, illness, or family cruelty. Each apartment had clean beds, food in the refrigerator, legal intake forms on the counter, and a stuffed animal on every child's pillow. No one had to prove they were broken enough to deserve a key. No one was asked why they stayed so long before leaving. No one paid a dog fee. On the wall inside the entrance hung a framed photograph of Major sitting in the passenger seat of the old pickup, ears forward, eyes serious, ready for whatever came next. Beneath it were the words Maya had carried from her grandmother. Through war, through marriage, through illness, through rain, and into the life she built after everyone thought she was finished. A soldier does not beg for shelter. She builds it. Richard Harrison resigned from 2 boards before winter. Margaret left the Charity Council quietly, though there was nothing quiet about the way people stopped saying her name at luncheons. Daniel Pierce took a long leave from practice. Elise Marrow testified under oath and later received a job offer from Maya's foundation managing resident intake. Maya did not celebrate any of it. Karma was not the point. Protection was. Years from now, Zoe and Ava would remember the storm differently, not only as the night they lost a house, but as the night their mother walked through rain without begging, the night Major found the letter, the night a hidden pocket carried a future, the night a woman who had been called temporary became impossible to erase. And every time a mother arrived at Major House with children in pajamas, trash bags in her hands, and shame sitting heavy on her shoulders, Maya met her at the door herself. She never asked, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" She only said, "You are safe tonight." Then she handed over a key. Because Maya Vance learned the hardest truth shelter can teach. A locked door can become a weapon. An open one can become a miracle. And the strongest homes are not built to impress the people outside. They are built so the children inside can finally sleep. Disclaimer: the story above is a creative adaptation produced for entertainment and inspirational purposes. All details, characters, settings, and events in this video are products of creative fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, whether living or dead, or real-life incidents is purely coincidental.